Tens of thousands of children across the country don't have access to dental care, including right here in Southern Nevada. Future Smiles is a local nonprofit that serves the dental needs of underserved students in the Clark County School District. We stopped by the Women's Philanthropy Dental Wellness Center on the campus of Elaine Wynn Elementary School to learn more about Future Smiles and the services they provide.
Future Smiles was founded in 2009 by 3 dental hygienists, myself and 2 of my dental hygiene colleagues. We had a dream of increasing access to dental care here in Southern Nevada. The facility is available for any Clark County School District child.
They said that he needed help, so then I said okay, and that's how I found out. Hi. They gave me some paperwork, and then they told me to come over here, and I made an appointment. He had some caps on his teeth that he had because he had 2 cavities. And so they fixed his cavities and then put in the caps, and right now they're gonna put the mouth gear because he's missing some teeth, so they want it to come out straight. The
dental care that is provided here at the Dental Wellness Center is very much like what you experience at a dental office. You will get digital x-rays, you will see a licensed dentist here in the state of Nevada, Dr. Erica Nieto, and she provides wonderful comprehensive dental care. So the children will have fillings, they'll have cleanings, they'll have any minor extractions that they may need, so that we can get them on a pathway.
It's so important, ages 0 to 100, it's connected to your entire body. I feel like in the past maybe it's been overlooked as not as important, but it really does connect to from your head to your toes.
Future Smiles is a 501c3 nonprofit. We balance out our care with Medicaid children as well as private philanthropy foundations like Elaine P. Wynn and Family Foundation and the Engelstadt Foundation. We have many, many foundations and funders that help support our mission. What we see is that 50% of our children have a Medicaid resource. However, the other 50% are low income and uninsured. I have a couple of points to make. First and foremost, parents need to sign their children up for Medicaid. If they're eligible, they should sign up for Medicaid because that opens the door to all healthcare products, whether it's medical, dental, vision, mental health, and all the things that a child needs to be healthy and well to do well in school. The second thing I'd like to say is oral health care matters throughout the lifespan. So kids need to, brush and floss twice a day, eat healthy foods, have good nutrition.
It's really rewarding. The population that we see, it's really rewarding. The families are very appreciative.
Oh, it means a lot because I know how it is to have bad teeth. As you know, a smile is that makes a smile in every day to everybody.
Thank you for all that you do for our students. And listen to this, Future Smiles also serves schools through a mobile unit that can provide on-site care for students in need. You can learn more at futuresmiles.net. At one local elementary school, it's Reading Week every week, all thanks to the school's wonderful namesake. Check it out.
Hi, boys and girls. Hello, Mrs. Gibbons.
Every Friday without fail, and with her lollipops and special cards in hand.
I am special. I was chosen to go to Story and Snack with Mrs. Gibbons.
Mrs. Gibbons,
remember, nice straight line.
visits her school for Story and Snack.
A card and a sucker.
A tradition dating back to 2004 when Linda Rankin Gibbons Elementary School, home of the Grizzlies, first opened its doors.
I run into students that went to school here 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever, and they always ask me, are you still reading on Fridays for Story and Snack? And I'm so happy that I can say, yes, I'm still there.
One of those former students,
and they all get so excited how they hold them up and show mom and dad.
Isabella Welch, who's now a campus security monitor and cheer coach at Gibbons Elementary.
Miss Gibbons, when I went here, was like a celebrity. Going to Story and a Snack, I always remember that it was a huge treat. Everybody was so excited.
She's really nice. I like to read books with her in kindergarten and 4th grade, and she's my favorite teacher.
There's no doubt Mrs. Gibbons was the favorite teacher of many of her students throughout her teaching career with CCSD.
Boys and girls, when I taught school, which Mrs. Gibbons taught here in Las Vegas for 30 years. I taught kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grades. When I taught, I always gave my boys and girls hugs because I think it made them feel like I really cared for them, which I did.
I like that she's kind and she reads stories.
That kind and caring nature
Don't worry, Doug likes you.
has made a positive impact on the lives of so many students. And she's even inspired some of these students to follow in her footsteps.
And I hope a lot of them would become teachers. I think that would be exciting.
My eventual goal of working here now is to eventually move into teaching here. That's something that I would love to do, and I'm currently getting my degree to do that.
I love to get hugs, so when you leave today, I want you to give me a hug or a high five, okay?
I like hugs. I like the hug her. I did hugs.
And we read somebody doesn't like hugs. We like hugs. Okay, high five.
I'm so happy to say I'm a hugger too. Big thank you to Mrs. Givens. It was truly wonderful to witness firsthand just how much your students love and admire you. You are definitely a celebrity. Tens of thousands of children across the country don't have access to dental care, including right here in Southern Nevada. Future Smiles is a local nonprofit that serves the dental needs of underserved students in the Clark County School District. We stopped by the Women's Philanthropy Dental Wellness Center on the campus of Elaine Wynn Elementary School to learn more about Future Smiles and the services they provide.
Future Smiles was founded in 2009 by 3 dental hygienists, myself and 2 of my dental hygiene colleagues. We had a dream of increasing access to dental care here in Southern Nevada. The facility is available for any Clark County School District child.
They said that he needed help, so then I said okay, and that's how I found out. Hi. They gave me some paperwork, and then they told me to come over here, and I made an appointment. He had some caps on his teeth that he had because he had 2 cavities. And so they fixed his cavities and they're putting the caps, and right now they're gonna put the mouth gear because he's missing some teeth, so they want it to come out straight.
The dental care that is provided here at the Dental Wellness Center is very much like what you experience at a dental office. You will get digital x-rays, you will see a licensed dentist here in the state of Nevada, Dr. Erica Nieto, and she provides wonderful comprehensive dental care. So the children will have fillings, they'll have cleanings, they'll have any minor extractions that they may need, so that we can get them on a pathway.
It's so important, ages 0 to 100, it's connected to your entire body. I feel like in the past maybe it's been overlooked as not as important, but it really does connect to from your head to your toes.
Future Smiles is a 501c3 nonprofit. We balance out our care with Medicaid children as well as private philanthropy foundations like Elaine P. Wynn and Family Foundation and the Ingolstadt Foundation. We have many, many foundations and funders that help support our mission. What we see is that 50% of our children have a Medicaid resource. However, the other 50% are low income and uninsured. I have a couple of points to make. First and foremost, parents need to sign their children up for Medicaid. If they're eligible, they should sign up for Medicaid because that opens the door to all healthcare products, whether it's medical, dental, vision, mental health, and all the things that a child needs to be healthy and well to do well in school. The second thing I'd like to say is oral health care matters throughout the lifespan. So kids need to, brush and floss twice a day, eat healthy foods, have good nutrition.
It's really rewarding. The population that we see, it's really rewarding. The families are very appreciative.
Oh, it means a lot because I know how it is to have bad teeth. As you know, a smile is that makes a smile in every day to everybody.
Thank you for all that you do for our students. And listen to this, Future Smiles also serves schools through a mobile unit that can provide on-site care for students in need. You can learn more at futuresmiles.net. At one local elementary school, it's Reading Week every week, all thanks to the school's wonderful namesake. Check it out.
Hi, boys and girls.
Hello, Mrs. Gibbons. Every Friday without fail, and with her lollipops and special cards in hand.
I am special. I was chosen to go to Story and Snack with Mrs. Givens.
Mrs. Givens
Remember, nice straight line.
visits her school for Story and Snack,
A card and a sucker.
a tradition dating back to 2004 when Linda Rankin Givens Elementary School, home of the Grizzlies, first opened its doors.
I run into students that went to school here 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever, and they always ask me, are you still reading on Fridays for Story and Snack? And I'm so happy that I can say, yes, I'm still there.
One of those former students,
And they all get so excited how they hold them up and show mom and dad.
Isabella Welch, who's now a campus security monitor and cheer coach at Givens Elementary.
Miss Givens, when I went here, was like a celebrity. Going to Story and a Snack, I always remember that it was a huge treat. Everybody was so excited.
She's really nice. I like doing books with her in kindergarten and fourth grade, and she's my favorite teacher.
There's no doubt Mrs. Givens was the favorite teacher of many of her students throughout her teaching career with CCSD.
Boys and girls, when I taught school, which Mrs. Givens taught here in Las Vegas for 30 years, I taught kindergarten, first and second grades. When I taught, I always gave my boys and girls hugs because I think it made them feel like I really cared for them, which I did.
I like that she's kind and she reads stories.
That kind and caring nature
Don't worry, Doug likes you.
has made a positive impact on the lives of so many students. And she's even inspired some of these students to follow in her footsteps.
And I hope a lot of them would become teachers. I think that would be exciting.
My eventual goal of working here now is to eventually move into teaching here. That's something that I would love to do, and I'm currently getting my degree to do that.
I love to get hugs, so when you leave today, I want you to give me a hug or a high five, okay?
I like hugs. I like to hug her. I did hug.
And we read somebody doesn't like hugs. We like hugs. Okay, high five.
I'm so happy to say I'm a hugger too. Big thank you to Mrs. Givens. It was truly wonderful to witness firsthand just how much your students love and admire you. You are definitely a celebrity.
I would like to remind everyone to silence your electronic devices. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the territorial homeland of the New Woo, the Moapa Band of Paiutes, and the Las Vegas Band of Paiutes. We're going to start with item 1.01 with the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Stevens. Thank you. Before we take the adoption of the agenda, item 1.02, is there anyone who has not had a chance to complete a public speaker card? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Satori.
Madam President, members of the board, I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following changes. Additional reference material provided for item 2.01, superintendent search. Reference material packet provided for item 2.02, superintendent search. Reference material provided for item 2.03, governance professional learning.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti.
I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. Mr. French, we might be having technical difficulties. That motion passes 7-0. Next item is item number 2.01, the superintendent search. This is not an action item. This is actually presentations by the two other candidates that we have today. We're going to start first. I'm going to ask Dr. Perez to come up first and introduce the candidate.
Good evening. Tonight, you'll be hearing from candidates 3 and 4, beginning with Ben Schuldener and following by Joan Ebert. The process will be exactly the same as last night, allowing for 50 minutes. I will take time. There will be a 20-minute presentation followed by questions from the trustees.
Thank you so much. Mr. Schuldener, would you please come to the witness table? I was a former legislator, so sometimes I forget the acronyms mixed up. But thank you. We'd like to welcome you. We're looking forward to your presentation. Do you have the clicker? Okay. Okay. We are going to have a time. Yes, press the button. It'll turn red. Maybe not.
Hello?
Yes, there it is. It'll work. Dr. Perez is going to keep the time. It's 20 minutes for your presentation, and then an opportunity for the trustees to ask questions. And so that also will be timed. We want to be concise in asking our question to you and allowing as much time as possible, up to 3 minutes, to respond. All right, please proceed.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor and privilege to be here, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. First thing is I want to clarify a couple of things. One, my name. Some people were mispronouncing it, which is totally fine, but what's nice is it's actually Schuldener, and it actually means school servant, actually, Schuldener. And I actually come from a long line of school servants and school workers. My mother was an English teacher. My father was a math teacher before he went into public housing. My grandmother actually ran a nursery school in the Bronx. And my grandfather ran an education rehabilitation center. So us Schuldeners really have education in our name and in our blood. The second thing is, the last time you spoke of me, you gave me a doctorate, which I do not have. And I just want to be very clear that I do not have it. I care very much about trust and transparency. I care about honesty, and I always want to correct the record, even if you gave me something special, which I did not deserve, and much to my mother's chagrin, I do not have a doctorate. But let's get started. So, SWOT. If you notice, I did not make a mistake. I changed it around a little bit. Why? Because I love SWOT analyses, but I like ending with opportunities. I like ending with hope, ending with a plan, and ending with great things. But let's get to those strengths. The strengths of the Clark County School District are its people. 40,000 employees, 300,000 students, 2.4 million community members, parents, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles. Every single one of them want the school district to succeed. The school district has talent, but what's holding it back is systems and structures. How do I know this? It was exactly like this in Lansing. Lansing, similar demographics, similar poverty levels, similar issues. It's urban, it's a city. It's not as big as Clark County, but it is the capital city. It's a big deal. This is what I inherited. The Lansing Public School System, for their math achievement and their reading achievement in terms of growth from 19 to 22, was some of the lowest in the state. And in the last 3 years, we have the highest increase in reading scores in the entire state of Michigan, and one of the highest in math. We didn't fire anybody. We supported people. We moved more money into the schools. We made sure the curriculum was there. We had accountability systems that were based not on fear and punitive measures, but actually supporting people. And this is what happens when you do it, and I know that we can do this in Clark County. Another strength, your magnets. Everybody knows about your magnets. They're incredible. I mean, I've been to probably 10 of them over the last 30 years in my career. I remember going to Del Sol. I think I still have a Del Sol Dragons t-shirt that I have somewhere. They're incredible, these magnet programs. I mean, the fact that A-Tech has won the blue ribbon, I think 3 times. I mean, that's something to be proud of. But again, this is about telling the story and being a cheerleader. When people say, oh, the Clark County School District is terrible, you say, what are you talking about? You have some of the greatest schools in the entire country, and that is something to be proud of. Your facilities are incredible. Right now, Lansing has $1 billion worth of deferred maintenance. In New York, we have so many schools from the Roosevelt administration, and I mean the Teddy Roosevelt administration. You have beautiful, wonderful buildings, and you've really increased safety and security, and we know it is so important to have teachers and staff and students feel safe and inviting. But I will give one caveat. We have to really make sure that we're going to talk about upkeep, which is something that we'll talk about later. But your facilities are terrific. Now, this will sound self-serving, and I promise it's not. One of the strengths is this board, and it is about your choice to balance governance. I get asked a lot to apply for jobs. I haven't applied for a single job since I went to Lansing. This is the first and only job I've applied to. Why? Because I've watched hours, probably 100 hours of this board. You are professional, you care, you might actually have different opinions, but the way that you work together, the way that you are professional, that allows a superintendent to do his or her job. And then when you voted 7-0 to get balanced governance, that meant the world to me. That was actually the kicker for me to finally say, yes, I'm going to do this. Why? Because I'm a Freudian at heart. I believe in co-construction. I believe in working together. Everything I've ever done is about team. And the fact that you are now saying that as a board, you are going to work hand in glove with the superintendent and the community, that allows us to move mountains. There's a lot to do in Clark County. This allows us to do it. All right, but let's talk about weaknesses. We all know that trust, transparency, and communication is an issue here. It was an issue in Lansing. I got there on the heels of a pretty bad scandal. There was all sorts of craziness. This community had lost faith in the city, and it had lost faith in the school district. So what did we do? We immediately go to the community. We created family superintendent roundtables. Now, people will malign parents. Oh, they don't want to care. They never come. That is garbage. Parents love their children. They want to be there. But the reason why there's sometimes not parental involvement is they don't feel comfortable in schools. They're not invited. They don't feel like they're welcomed. We changed that. And so we now have family superintendent roundtables that pack the house because they know their voice is heard, and we do some great things. I send a weekly email to the community. It goes out to tens of thousands of people. That's a copy of there. Sorry about my face. But it is an amazing thing because what we are doing is I'm honest, I'm open, I say the good, I say the bad to the entire community. And it's such a big deal now that honestly our news agencies, because it's the capital city, we have 3 TV stations and we have the newspaper, they will just cut and paste my entire newsletter sometimes and put it in the paper because that's how much it's become the communication. We also have student and superintendent roundtables. We have a weekly email to the board. That's something I care deeply about is I send a 4 to 5 page single-spaced email to the board about the topics that they want because you have to make sure that you support the board. Informational study sessions. This is something we're going to get to in a little bit, but every month, one board meeting a month, we take a deep dive into a topic. Maybe it's budget, and we spend an hour, 2 hours making sure that you know everything there is, and of course, by way, that means the community knows everything there is. I have monthly meetings with all the union presidents. Lansing's a very strong union town. We have 6 bargaining units. Lansing's where Oldsmobile is from. We have 2 GM plants. We have the state. There's a lot of unions. I meet with every union president at least once, and then the teachers union I meet twice. School index score, I want to talk about something. When I got to Lansing, within the first year, we were told that more than half of our schools were going to be on the kind of receivership list, bottom 5%. And everybody said, Ben, what are you going to do? How are you going to, massage this? How are you going to talk about it? I said, what do you mean? We're going to be straight up. Had a press conference, walked up to the podium and said, the community knows, the school district knows, and now the state knows. We are not serving our children to the best of our ability. We're going to change it. Here's our plan and hold us accountable. And now, after 2 years, almost all of the schools are off the list. We only have 2 left, and they are already on their way. And by next year, we're going to go from almost half of the district to none. That's how you do this. Okay. Another big one is teacher vacancies. You have about 1,000 teacher vacancies. Unacceptable. When I got to Lansing, it was very similar. Numbers are a little different, of course. It was almost 100. This is, and what did we do? An 82% decrease in classroom vacancies. You cannot have kids learn unless you have great, highly skilled teachers in every classroom. Now, how did we do it? We increased pay, grow your own, recruit, make it easier to apply. I'm happy to go into it. I look forward to your questions because I want to go more in depth, but we got a lot to cover here. Overall academics. Here's the honest answer. Clark County students deserve better. 120 or more one-star schools. Graduation rate at 81.5. What happened to Focus 2024? We have to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to what makes sense. We can do it. I know we can. Why? Because we did it in Lansing. When I got to Lansing, the graduation rate was 62%. Now, I'm including the years before because I don't want you to think I'm juicing the numbers, that somehow it was high and then it got low. Absolutely not. We never crossed 70 before I got there. This is it in the last 3 years, from 62 to 88%. It's a 26% increase in Lansing, Michigan. 88 is the best ever. It's the first time past 80, the first time past 85, and last year was the first time past 70 and 75. And what I'm really proud of is our dropout rate is now 5%. Because what does that say to me? When students, even if they're not graduating, they're staying with us because they feel supported, they feel loved, and they feel a part of the community. Now, I also want to be, again, very transparent. When I applied, I said 89%, and I said 6% dropout. That's what the numbers were from the state at that point. Well, they just had the audit, they cleaned it up, it went from 89 to 88, and our dropout rate went 6 to 5. I'm always going to be transparent, I'm always going to be open. You know that states do audits and things change. This is the number they gave us, and then now this is the number we have. But 88% from 62. It's incredible. Let's talk budget, folks. So you might remember this. Not so long ago in this place, you were given this wonderful presentation. Now, here's the thing. I am not sure that you really are getting as full information as you need. This presentation took 13 minutes and 16 seconds. I timed it. This is a $4 billion budget and addendums. This is something that should take an hour or 2 hours where you're going down every line because there's a lot of red flags here, a lot of questions. Now, I'm sure that people have done a great job. I'm not saying that anything's wrong, but I have a ton of questions. And in a board meeting, when you're going over a $4 billion budget, you got to ask. So let's talk about what you see. 18% increase and 23% increase for your budgets over these last couple of years, and it's been even more. There's a lot of money, a lot of new money. So where is it all going? What's going on? We're talking about cuts. When I look at these increases, we have to have some serious conversation. But let's talk about this slide. If you remember, And they said that you're losing $21 million because they didn't understand the way that interest was going. I'm sorry, this doesn't make any sense to me. If you have investments, you're a school district, you basically are pretty limited. You can't do derivatives, you can't buy equities, you usually are doing either bonds or maybe, if you're lucky, you can do commercial paper. You know what you're buying into. You should know what your numbers are. The fact that you're down $21 million because there's an addendum has a real question to me. But that's not the biggest problem of this slide. The biggest problem of this slide is the $50 million that it's showing. Now, yeah, you're taking out the principal, and that's fine. But what you see on this slide, it looks like you're up 28, but you're really not. You're down about 22. And really, this is like when you go to the store and you're like, well, the suit only cost $1,000. It used to be $2,000. You still spent $1,000, folks. And so we can go into budgets really in depth. This is something that we really need to talk about. So here's some things, just as you know. I was a trustee of the Pension Fund Board for New York, helped manage about $5 billion. What you can see is when I got to Lansing, we had no investment strategy. Now we're making almost $4 million a year in investments. Okay, this is where we get the real interesting stuff. So your school budgets, you're averaging about $132,000 per person. School's where it's at, right? We want to put all the money into schools. We want to make sure our people are there. They're only earning $132 per person. Your teaching and learning unit, $172. What's your ROI? Do you know that that's well spent? Like, I love coaches, don't get me wrong, but you're spending $172,000 per person on coaches, $177 on comms. I love your comms. I watch those videos incessantly. But is there ROI here? What is working? And then, of course, the fat cats, the Office of the Superintendent. Am I going to be worth this? $210 per person, and that's the entire office. You got to really look at what's happening here. Now, we're going to get really in the weeds here. Your Benny rate is about 49%. If you look at this and if you look at this is your state budget and this is the one that was presented, is that your salaries are around $2 million and your benefits are about $1 million. That means you're running about a 49% Benny rate. Now, we all know, we talked about it, they didn't put in that 8%. Well, I really don't understand that because you did a contract, it was 2 years, it was 10%, it was 8%. I meet with my CFO every week, we go over the numbers, we know exactly where we are, but they said it was in there, it wasn't in there, whatever. The fact is that you've got $34 million extra. But here's the problem if you want to get deep. Your Benny rate is normally 49%. Now it's 14%. Now, is that $4 million real? Is it not? I don't know. But the question is, why are we not having these conversations when they're presenting this? When we talk about a $4 billion budget, the board, and this is why I love balanced governance, is that this is where we work together to go line by line so you understand it. But that's not the worst problem on here. $64 million for supplies. That's not your total budget. That's the new money. Where did this come from? What is it for? $64 million extra dollars for supplies, $21 million for the purchase services. Where's the explanation? What's going on? Everybody focused on the 9.9 million, quote, loss. How about the 151 million that you're spending extra? These are some serious issues. Now, look, I know one of the knocks on me is I'm not from here. It would take me so long to start working. Let's do the budget right now, folks. There is not an issue about knowing a district when it comes to budgets. This is very important, and it's something that we need to talk about. Now, just as proof in the pudding, always got to come with receipts. When I got there, we were at $14 million for the fund balance. We added $43 million. We're now at about $57 million, and this is increasing salary with every bargaining unit to one of the leads in the entire economic research. Now, one other thing, I just throw this in. You have a lot of purchasing power. You are a big district. When I got to Lansing, we were paying fees, $30,000. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but the idea is that we were paying all these exorbitant fees to banks. We negotiated it. Now it's at $2,000. Clark County can do so much with its budget. Let's talk about threats. Okay, talking about budget. The federal government has made no bones about what they're doing to the federal government. They are cutting it. They are slashing it. So are you ready? Title I, Title II, Title III, IDEA, Medicare, Medicaid. You know what we've got in Lansing? We've got budgets for each one of those going down because they might. Now, your politics is your politics, but if you're running a school district, you have to know exactly what might happen. And it's not just the money. It's also policies. They might expand choice. They might force curriculum. They might have flexible funding. Think about what's happening in Arizona, right? We've got to be ready, and I am worried that we're not necessarily ready here. Weather, that is a huge threat. You don't need me to tell you, it gets real hot here. 112 days over 100 degrees, 36 days over 110 degrees. But remember I said how great your facilities are? Where's your maintenance? You look at these, ripped from the headlines. Teachers consider quitting because it's hot. The 90 schools without AC or having AC problems. This is a big deal, and this is certainly a threat. Now, let's talk about labor. Not so long ago, you had teachers arrested at a board meeting. Now, I do not blame labor at all. That means they were pushed. Nobody really wants to get arrested. There was a total loss of faith by labor. That is a big deal. And guess what? It was the same thing in Lansing. When I got to Lansing, that's our assistants union. They were thought of as terrible. They had, fights. They sued us. They yelled and screamed. We had to do all sorts of crazy maneuvering. And then we just treated them like human beings. I've negotiated 6 different bargaining unit contracts because I do it personally with my team. And this is a picture of when we finally signed the agreement. We had cake, and publicly and privately they said it was the first time a superintendent really understood how to do negotiations, really sit at the table with a team, and this is just one of 6. It's really powerful, and this, I'm telling you, labor is very, very important. I have the experience. I've done it in really heavy union places where people are happy. We never had a strike, never even a whiff of a strike, because we know how to treat our workers well. Enrollment. You know this, you don't need me to tell you this, but it is an issue. Now, people are voting with their feet. They're going to charter, homeschool, leaving the district. I don't blame them. I'm not faulting them. This is a negative to somebody who goes homeschool. What this is saying is we've got to recognize that this is happening. Why? What's the value add that we are not, as CCSD, adding? In addition, you've got demographic changes, less students, but also you've got some students in one area, not in the other. There's a huge budget implication. And for facilities, are you ready for that? How have you planned? Very, very important, and that is certainly a threat. Okay, let's talk opportunities. We're going to be super self-serving here. It's time for a fresh start. We know that the Clark County School District has had some issues over the last couple of years, maybe more. You have a chance to start fresh. When you bring in somebody new who has good ideas, that has proven that they meet what you are asking for, it's time to do it. In your kind of portrait of what you wanted, you were asking for political acumen, budget acumen, and actual students learning outcomes. And in a district of diversity, a district of the same poverty level, a district that is big and urban, this is what you get with me. Now, he doesn't know Nevada. Well, let's talk. Let's talk about the reorg. I would love you to ask me about the reorg because the 388G, it's site-based budgeting, and it's school organizational teams, SOTs. Guess what? New York did that 25 years ago. I know it's new here, but it is not new under the sun. I love this stuff. You have a biennial legislature. They meet for 120 days, and then it's like Brigadoon. They are gone. Now, what we've got to make sure of is, do you have people up there, and do you have relationships? Now, again, you're going to say, oh, Ben, you don't know anybody. I don't know anybody in Lansing, but I'm going to take a red eye tonight, and when I arrive in Michigan, where am I going? To the state of the state, because the appropriations chair is taking me so that I can be there with the governor. You can do politics, but the most important thing is you say, well, Ben, you don't know anybody. Well, you all do. We're going to work this together. We're going to go hand in hand to Carson City. We're going to talk to the folks, and the other thing is they want this district to succeed. You think for a moment that if we don't come with a real plan and a real understanding that they're going to talk to us? Now, we got to get up there, and I will say that one thing I would suggest is whoever you hire is allow them to go up to Carson City even before they start, if that's even legal, because you really need to get there, because that 120-day clock is ticking. Also, just one thing, earmarks. Lansing had never gotten specific earmarks in the budget. Yeah, we could talk about, we raised the budget for the education, but because I have such good relationships with our folks, is we're getting things written into the budget just for us. We have a new track, a new school. That is about knowing how to play the politics, giving the folks in your capital, in Carson City, proof that your money is well spent. This is very important because this is about tax money. It is about people's money. We've got to make sure that this is happening. Okay, proven positive outcomes for students. Let's reiterate here. Graduation rate, 26%. Attendance rate, 14%. Increased enrollment for the first time in 30 years, because in Michigan, it's a state of choice. And people were leaving in droves. Now they believe in the district. Now they're coming back. Highest reading gains in Michigan. Increased state test scores in every subject in every grade. NWA scores, they just came out for us. We increased by 92% in 2 years. Again, great labor relations in a very strong union town. We increased salaries to some of the highest in the entire economic region while still increasing fund balance. Created universal pre-K, created Lansing Tech, created Lansing Learning Hub for at-risk students. We created a newcomer center. Well-known fact, Lansing takes almost 1% of the nation's refugees. We wanted to make sure that our kids felt comfortable when they were coming to our district. And something that doesn't get talked enough about, when I got to Lansing, the special ed compliance rate was under 50% for initials, annuals, and reevals. It was terrible. And within a year, we got it to 100, and it's been 100 for the last 3 years. So again, I ask you, you did a national search. You wanted somebody that was able to do the things you asked for. Increase student achievement. Know politics very well. Know budgets very well. And know this community. I'm telling you, the 300,000 students in this district, the millions of families, they want their kids to succeed. It is time to do it. I would be honored if you gave me the opportunity to help do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's have a round of applause for our presentation. Now we will take questions from trustees. Again, Mr. Schuldiner is to make sure that we ask the question in a concise manner to allow you enough time to respond, but we will be timing that up to 3 minutes so we all have an opportunity. So Trustee Barron.
Thank you, Superintendent Schuldiner. Welcome to our valley.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've been here before, but you're somewhat familiar with us if you know about Del Sol.
Many times.
So I myself, as a 30-year teacher, I am a Stephen Krashenite. And so I read what you have here, right? You know what I'm talking about. That's fantastic. So I see these amazing gains that you made in math. So now I know that a good chef never reveals their secret recipe. So, but I'm going to ask you.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can tell me what's a little bit of your secret sauce that you have maybe helped, just into the reading, if you could tell us what is a little bit of the secret sauce that got you to this reading level.
My pleasure, and for me, there's no ego here. We share everything because I care about children around this world. So what did we do? We did a couple of things. One, school-based budgeting. We moved as much money to the schools as possible, and that allowed us to then focus on getting more adults. So with our elementary schools, we added assistants in all of our third grades and all of our kindergartners. That's really moved the needle. We also created something called EduStat, where every month the principals come to central office and we go through their data, not in a punitive way, in a super positive way. And what happens is they say, well, here are the kids that are on track. Great. These are the kids that are a little off track, bubble kids. Well, what are we going to do for them? Are we going to give tutoring? Are we going to give mentoring? Because we know the research is very clear. 3 things matter. The teacher in the classroom is number 1. Tutoring, and then mentoring. And so we say to those schools, oh, you've got these kids on the bubble. What tutoring are we doing? And so we created Saturday tutoring. We've created Sunday tutoring. We've created summer school programs. We even have spring break schools. So those are some of the things. The other thing is we give teachers the data. A lot of time teachers don't know which kids are which, and they just kind of middle shoot. But here we're supporting them. We're giving them coaches. We're giving them help. And that has been huge. The other one is curriculum support. Curriculums tend to be okay, but not everybody is getting supported. And so that's why we're pushing money, we're pushing people, we're having EduStat, we're holding people accountable, but in a positive, loving, and supportive way, and not a punitive. And that's why when they all pull together, you get results like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Schuldiner, for applying and doing this process. I know it's difficult on the family. I am so glad you mentioned balanced board governance, and I wanted to ask you how you plan to maintain a strong balance of power that respects both authority and the oversight of the board.
So I love balanced governance because what it really says, and I have some quotes there on the screen, it's about empowering a board and equipping a board to have knowledge and understanding. So we've got to do ISSs. We've got to make sure that we spend hours. I mean, I'm sure you all don't want to be hanging out with me, but there is so much that we can do because you need to know the information. The other thing is, I want to walk the halls with you. You have your districts, you have your schools. The way that we're going to move this district is by doing this together. So how are we going to do balanced governance? You're going to get everything. There's no ego here. I only care about children. I don't care. I mean, most superintendents hate balanced governance because they care so much about being in charge, being right. I don't care. It's about children. And so you ask me for something, you'll get it. And then, of course, because it's Nevada, everybody will get it. So that's really powerful, right? And so, you know, when you look at these things, the school board member is knowledgeable about the district. I mean, one of the knocks is, oh, Ben, you don't know the district. You don't know the schools. Let's walk together. You're going to introduce me to everybody. And that way we're going to know that we're working together. We're going to be simpatico. I love balanced governance. And no joke, when you voted 7-0, that was the indication that I'm going to get on that flight.
Thank you. And Ben, I'm going to help you out. So the way that the state pronounces his name is Nevada, and so it just matters. But I just appreciate you even being open, and I appreciate you saying you don't have an ego. So thank you for letting me share that to you.
I should just say Clark County a lot, right?
There you go. Trustee Stevens.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
I really enjoyed the money part, and so thank you for breaking that down. When you talked about budgets that were specific to federal policies that affect school districts, my question to you would be, if the Trump administration were to get rid of the Department of Ed, you wouldn't necessarily have to, right, budget for those items. So what would you do? If the federal government wasn't forcing your hand, what would you budget for that would be your priorities?
So it really depends on how they get rid of the DOE. So what's typical in this kind of case is they would do block grants, and so it would be forced. So they would say that we're not running the show, but we're giving you these block grants that are for specific things, because those are actually legislative. Now, in a world that maybe I don't have to, oh my God, I mean, you know, we're going to put as much money into classrooms as possible. You're going to support our kids as much as possible. You're going to probably want to raise salaries so that you can get talent. How are we going to, you know, deal with 1,000 vacancies? You know, we want to make sure that there's coaches. We want to make sure there's better systems. But the truth is, if the DOE goes away, the likelihood is not that we're going to have free rein on the money. The more likelihood is that it would go to the state, and then there would be some sort of block grant. And what we have to really think about is what happens if those block grants are a lot less than you think they're going to be. Because what the federal government has been talking about is slashing certain things. Now, getting rid of certain things is sometimes difficult, but they could cut it in half. So what we're doing in Lansing is we're just running different budgets for those different titles. So we'll see. But if I had a magic wand and they gave me money, you're putting it in the classroom. That's what you're doing. And then you're making sure if there's any, you know, issues like air conditioning or things like that. But teachers, 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 assistants, 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 kids, kids, kids.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan.
Thank you, Mrs. Schuldiner. We share common Stoffergan gets chopped up. So,
Sure.
So here's the thing I want to ask you. You said half of the schools were underperforming, and there was a 2-year turnaround. Like most research would be like 3 to 5. So I'm very curious and fascinated. What processes, systems, very specific if you can,
Sure.
of how that happened?
Sure. So you're absolutely right that most research is it takes about 3 years to really change. Now, these were schools that were in the bottom 5%, so they were super low. So getting out of the bottom 5%, you can usually do in about 2 years. So the school index score, which is very similar to your kind of star rating, is it's not just one number, it's a lot of numbers. So that number was attendance. So we worked hard on attendance. We made sure to clean our systems up. One of the issues that you have with things like graduation is that you have kids that you don't know where they are. Every kid can be found. We make sure that that happens. Then we had to deal with things like ratios of PE teachers and librarians. So we focused on that. What we did was we took point by point how the numbers were created and then solved it. It's the same thing with the star ratings. You know, you are getting these numbers that are an amalgam of things. Well, how much does the principal really know the minute difference between making sure, like in Lansing, that you have the right ratio of PE teachers to students? The district had just not focused on that. And so in 2 years, you can clean up a lot of that. But in addition, like we were talking about with the testing, which is the big one, is having assistants in the elementary schools, having accountability. The amount of change that you can do on something like a star rating or in Lansing or in any of the other states by just knowing which kids are close. is tremendous. And so bubble kids, close kids, you need to make sure that you're working on them. Then the kids that need a lot of help, are you making sure to differentiate there? The district hadn't been doing that. And when I see here 120 plus schools that are 1-star, you can fix that very quickly. But you have to understand where the numbers are coming from, and you've got to invest in the classroom, you have to invest in the teachers, and you have to be able to do that. And if you have good data systems, you'll be great.
Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation
Sure.
and for being here tonight. Appreciate it. So I wanted to have you speak a little bit more to the graduation rate increase. You spoke of 26% increase in Lansing. I want to hear more of some of the specific strategies that you use to see that increase.
So I'm going to give the special sauce again, Trustee Barone. So here it is. You create graduation specialists that are district-wide. Then you have graduation specialists that are building-wide. And this is a presentation that I just gave to the Michigan State Superintendents Association. You have monthly meetings where the building and district graduation specialists are meeting and going over each and every name. And then I, as superintendent, sit with every high school. And in a district like this, you would do it through regional, but I would be there too. You can have it on Zoom, is that you go through every high school and the kids that are in the cohort that should be graduating. And so when you have a district graduation specialist, when you have a school building graduation specialist, they have meetings where they're making sure that the data is the same for the district and for the school. Then you meet with the superintendent or superintendent's office, and literally we put it up on a PowerPoint and we go through their list. Where are you with this kid? Where are you with this kid? And we've also have a new software that allows people to put notes in for each child. So that way you're actually moving the needle. Edustat, again, which is what I explained earlier, is that when the principals come in for their Edustat meeting, of course the high schools are asked, where are your graduation numbers? And they better know them. And then, of course, we have a way of sharing that allows us to do this. So again, it's graduation specialists, it's monthly meetings with leadership. There's an old adage, you teach what you test. Well, if the superintendent's office is saying we really care about this stuff, you better believe people are going to care. But we have to give them the tools and to hold them accountable, and giving them the extra money to make sure that they have graduation specialists. And this is a big one, that the counselor is really thinking cohort models rather than grades. A lot of times high schools will say, well, the kid's a 12th grader. Well, okay, or the kid's a 9th grader. But actually the 9th grader is really a 12th grader by cohort. But because they don't have the credits, they're not necessarily thought that way. So that's a big thing that you've got to change as well.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti?
Hello, Mr. Schuldiner. Thank you for your presentation. Given the progress you've made in improving reading and math in your home of Lansing, Michigan, what is motivating you to leave that work behind for Las Vegas?
It's a great question. I figured that was coming. As trite as it might say, I come from a long line of people that have devoted their life to public service. And if there is a meaning to life, it is to help as many people as you possibly can. Clark County is Canaan in some respects for me. It is a big district that has wonderful people, but the kids are not being served the way they are. I love my board. My board has been texting me, good luck, we'll miss you, we love you. But this is an opportunity, again, to find a district that I want to bring my family to, that I want to live in for the next decade, for the next 2 decades. I want to raise my family here. Why? Because it's rare that you find a district with this many children, with a board that cares, with the opportunity and the kind of latent potential. This doesn't exist very often. And when, I was kind of recruited and asked, would you consider it? I said, Clark County? Absolutely. Let me look. And then I watched hundreds of hours of you all talking to each other. And there was some stuff a couple of years ago that I got a little nervous about. But what I see with this group is this is the place that I want to be for the rest of my career. Because it's going to take time to move a 300,000 kid district in a $4 billion budget. But there's something special here. And I cannot tell you how happy I would be to be here, move my family. They're ready because this is the place. This is Canaan for me.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Schuldiner, for your presentation. You talked about a fresh start. You talked about a lot of the strengths and weaknesses. What do you personally see as possibly being a roadblock from taking all those successes from Lansing, and you have a lot of successes, sir,
Sure.
as far as scaling them to the size of this large and diverse district?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot, right? When I got to Lansing, it was, there were roadblocks. There were people that maybe, organizations tend to follow the way organizations are, right? They're an entity unto itself. And so if you're making big changes, not everybody's going to be happy with that. Because when you say to somebody, hey, we've got to change, they go, what? But I'm great. I've been here for 20 years. I'm amazing, right? And so you've got to make sure that you're doing it with love, you're doing it with support. But I think there'll be roadblocks because we are moving the cheese, right? In order for us to get rid of the 120 plus one-star schools, we're going to have deep and honest conversations about what's happening in those schools. And if people just say, well, it's the kids, it's the parents, those folks can't be in this district. And those are going to be important conversations. But I know that teachers don't think that way. They want to move the needle. They care about their district, but it's about showing them the way to do it and to give them the support. But the big roadblock is the change that has to happen when you move somebody's cheese, but you got to make sure that you're doing it with love and support. In addition, there might be other outside entities that don't necessarily want CCSD to survive or to do well, and we just have to make sure that people recognize that if the school district does well, the city does well, the state does well, and the country does well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Trustee Henry?
Hello. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know that we all know that those early investments are best, and you spoke about creating universal pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So the first order of business when I became superintendent at Lansing was to send all the kids back to school because it was COVID. The second thing I did was create universal pre-K. And you can do it because the value add that you get, now look, you never think about kids as money, you never think of kids as numbers. Kids are kids and we love them. But if you invest early and you get kids to start in Clark County, they will end up staying in Clark County. So when you do the math, the investments that it matters that it will take will actually come back 2 or 3-fold. And you just have to have the will. You have to say, in our budget, how do we have universal pre-K? How many kids are the age? In what neighborhood? Let's do it. It's about putting your money where your priorities are. I mean, just as an aside, I drove up to Lundy because everybody was talking about it. So it's cold up there. There was snow, which I thought I left by in Michigan. And it's $6 million to redo that school. It's a 5-star school. If you're putting kids first, it's not even a question, right? You'll find the money. It's all about saying what's best for kids, and universal pre-K is absolutely best for kids. It's also a huge savings for families because they're spending so much on childcare. And so it's just about prioritizing the money. Let's talk about the 151. Where'd all that money come from? And it's just, as a board, you're going to be leaders. We're going to lead together what matters. And let me tell you, universal pre-K is it. And in fact, the board president said, Ben, are you sure? I said, well, what's more important? She said, nothing. I said, great, let's do it.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson?
Thanks, Ben. Sure. Really quickly, you mentioned earlier about our teacher vacancy, and you talked about how in Lansing you all use incentives to be able to navigate through that. One of the things that we find here is that we wanted to support novice teachers and bring more in, and they got these great starting pay, and then that created inequity. How did you all, with limited resources, be able to
Sure.
ensure that there was new teacher pay, also pay for veteran teachers?
Sure. So, one thing I will say is, labor tends to not like to switch things up like that, right? I mean, unions are unions where they say, hey, look, a third grade teacher is a third grade teacher, a fifth year teacher is a fifth year teacher. But I have to say, I was impressed to know that there's actually, if it's hard to staff, there's extra money. That's rare. And I heard that the former superintendent kind of fought that. In my world, when the union gives you something, you say thank you. And so, what you need to do, and this is what we did, is I sat with my union president. We have a couple of schools that are really hard to staff. So we created 1.2 FTE. We said, if you are willing to work in that school, you're going to get basically 20% more. It didn't matter just your salary, 20. So that way you weren't dividing anybody. You're just saying, hey, you want to leave your nice school that you love and you want to go to a hard-to-staff school? Bring it on. And thank God we have such a great union relationship, and that changed. We had this one school, I think half the teachers were subs. Within 2 months of bringing the 1.2 FTE pay, completely full. And what was great is we didn't cannibalize Lansing, we actually cannibalized the other districts because they wanted to. And I will point out that Utah just passed a law that outlawed labor unions for public servants. Should be sending vans to Utah. There's ways to get those 1,000 teachers. And so we got to make sure that you're thinking about that.
I'll drive.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. Hello, thank you for the presentation. So as you talked about trust, transparency, and communication, you talked about family and student superintendent roundtables. Can you walk me through how often you do those
Sure.
and how they go? Because just kind of see who's leading those conversations and how that goes.
Sure. So they're once a month. We have them in a huge room, and what we do is, because we've built all this trust, is just everybody comes and they get to talk. Now, sometimes there's questions like, do you like the curriculum? Are things going well? We talked about how do we support PTAs. I know you have SOTs. So in New York, it was SLTs, very, very similar, where you had 50% teachers or 50% staff and 50% parents. And then if it's an older school, you have kids. That's awesome. We have a lot of schools that don't have functioning PTAs, but the parents want it, so we were there to support them. But how does it work? I listen, we work together, and then we get answers to the families. A lot of our high school parents were complaining that there wasn't enough information about graduation. Well, 2 weeks later, we created an entire website just for graduation. They were thrilled. One of the big things was about school buses. It's very cold in Michigan, as I'm sure you know, and kids were waiting outside for the bus. So we said, well, maybe there's an app for that. We got the app, Where's My Bus? Parents, we listen to them. So what it is just an open forum. And in Clark County, it'd be a lot of folks. We'd go to each of your districts. Every day, I don't sleep. We make sure that there's one in District F and District D once a month. And the big issue, though, is a lot of parents will think, nobody's going to listen to me. I don't want to go. And so what you've got to do is you've got to build that up. And so it started small. And now we pack the house because everybody talks. Everybody talks. They say, the superintendent listened. The executive team was there. We bring the entire executive team. So if there's a transportation issue, transportation takes. There's a curriculum comes. And they know that we're there. And then when they finally see that what they say becomes action, it spreads like wildfire.
Thank you. I'm going to take a point of privilege and ask my question before to go to the second round. My question is, you mentioned that you were going to the state of the state. My question is, what kind of tax policy exists to be able to fund education there? And how did you influence lawmakers to? Sure.
So I'll give you a kind of a fun example. So Michigan budgets, like all budgets, are always kind of done at the last minute. And so the funding actually in Michigan is that every district gets the same per pupil, except for maybe a handful. And then the bonds for the buildings are what really makes the difference. So the rich communities have really beautiful buildings, and us poor folks not as much. But they trust me so much that when it was 1 a.m, the head of the Senate Appropriations Chair, the head of the House Appropriations Chair were calling me, and they're like, Ben, we're so sorry it's 1 a.m. I'm like, I'm in California. It's all good. You guys call whatever you want. And so from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. East Coast time, we were actually working on the final draft together. I'm not from Lansing, I'm from New York. But they trust me enough because I made those relationships. I mean, I can see the Capitol from my office. I make sure to have those relationships. And so, yeah, we actually help change language, we help change laws, and if you really know what you're doing, you can make sure that they throw things in there just for you. That's how we're getting a new track and a new building. So, tomorrow, I'll be there with the approach chair, I'll be there, to see the governor. Those are the kinds of relationships that you need, and certainly with Clark County, the nice thing here is, 65% of the state? They're going to take the phone call. The issue is, do you know what to ask? And do you know how to ask? So, the superintendent, whoever that person is, you pick up the phone, you call the legislature, they're going to answer. The question is, do you know how to ask it? What are you going to ask? And then do you have proof that the taxpayers' money are well spent? And I'm telling you, when you start to have real good, honest budget conversations, they'll want to give you money. We now get calls from other school districts that they want us to manage their budgets. We get calls from other municipalities that say, hey, you're so good at this. Could we maybe run money through you? I can see Clark County in a position where you are helping to change the entire state. But that's how you do it. So I'm happy to go into more depth. But Michigan is a very interesting political state. But when you make those relationships and you have a vision and you have trustworthiness and you show that the money is well spent, That's it. But the power of Clark County right now is you are 60 to 65% of the state. They're going to take the call. You just have to know what to ask.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Stroffigan?
I did it to myself. I'm looking at slide 35, and what I noticed is your multilingual learners is at 17%. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
And in CCSD, we're at 16.7% with we call them ELs. And then with students with ability, is what I prefer to use, yours is 23% and ours is 14.5%. So I want to hear specifically, because we're an international city, we're 24/7, we have over 100 languages.
Sure.
What is your plan for the fact that our proficiencies are single digit for those populations?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Lansing. You know, I mean, we have, I think, 75 languages in Lansing. You know, we're a huge hub for refugees, huge hub for immigrants. There's a couple of things. There's a lot of different kinds of kids, right? You can't treat everybody the same. First question is, are you coming from another country where English isn't your first language and you might not have had either formal schooling or you had some schooling where you're not going to necessarily understand going into a big, large high school, even what Google Classroom is. So what we did is we created the Newcomer Center, which allowed students to come in, get very special training, very special support, just learning how to open up a locker. Because you know high school kids can be pretty mean. And so you want to make sure that they feel super, super comfortable. So there's a lot that you can do there. With MLs or ELs, you know, you've got to make sure that the teachers are trained. You have to make sure that there's appropriate curriculum. A lot of times there's not appropriate curriculum. And sometimes what's really bad is when kids don't necessarily know English, they're treated like they can't learn, when in fact they're probably super fluent in maybe 13 different languages. And so you have to make sure that the intake is such that you know where the kids are, what their levels are. And then you need to know, you know, have programs for them. You know, we've moved the needle on MLs. I mean, we're, you know, at 17, which you said is pretty similar. Like, you know, those kids are doing, I mean, you can't raise graduation rates by 26% if not everybody's moving up. And it's about treating each kid individually, making sure that they have what they need. And sometimes they're misplaced in the wrong class, in the wrong school. We'll make sure that those kids are finding the right place. And for, you know, students with special needs, alternative learners, the issue is people think sometimes that because you have an IEP, it means you can't learn. That's nonsense. It just means that you might learn differently. And so you have to make sure that you are following the IEP to a T, that teachers are trained to do that and given the supports. Being a teacher is really hard. And then when you add the extra burdens of things like IEPs, you have to make sure that your special ed team is always there as a support, not just punitive. And so what we've been able to do, again, going from 50% compliance to 100% compliance, is now that we have the annuals, the re-evals, and all those things, now the teachers are empowered to actually make the changes that they need to do. And the other thing that happens sometimes, sadly, because of racism, because of classism, is sometimes we see things like behavior as actually IEPs, and they're not. And so we've got to make sure that we're checking who's getting referred, how they're getting referred. And what we've actually done in Lansing is we have a large percentage, 23, but you'd be amazed at how many we're actually not doing, because what we find is, in fact, kids doing fine. It's just that they had a fight. So we stopped that, right? And so there's a lot of things that we can do. And certainly with the district this large, you're going to want to have centers that have real excellence and skill, because learning how to work with MLs and students with IEPs, you know, there's a lot there, and you want to make sure that every one of those kids is supported. And happy to go into more depth. So,
thank you. With that, that concludes our time. We want to thank you as a team for your presentation. Let's give them a round of applause. It is 5:52. We're going to take a 10-minute break and come back at 6:02, please. Okay, thank you, everyone. Dr. Perez, if I can invite you back up to introduce the candidate.
Welcome back. So this will be the final candidate of 4 to present and interview for the first round of interviews with the trustees. So without further ado, I give you Joan Ebert.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert, and I am your 4th and last candidate in this process. Good evening. There we go. My mom was 18 when I was born. My sister was born 18 months later, and then my father left us 18 months after that. And so when I think about a 22-year-old that had her life in front of her, and how she made sure that we had what we needed. And being a multi-biracial child, that I was exposed to things early on, and I had the resources that I need. I was a free and reduced lunch kid, free and reduced lunch family. And during that time, that did not matter because she made sure that we had access to events that were in our city. And specifically, I remember the time when we went to UCLA. Little kid on campus at UCLA. It was a powwow. We were exposed to dance, to music, to art. I ran around that grass. I feel it right now in my bones, just running around the grass and learning about all the different aspects of who we are as human beings. She was my first educator. When I went to high school, Mr. Pritchard, my guidance counselor, he didn't care that I was a free and reduced lunch kid. He didn't care that I didn't have a place to study at night. He didn't care about my clothing. What he cared about and what he had control of is making sure that I took Algebra 2, that I took chemistry, that I was enrolled in physics, and that I also knew that I could go on to college. I couldn't afford college, but he made sure I knew about Pell Grants. My mother had never gone to college. And through education and the educators in my life, I was able to move on. Now, I had to work full-time. I worked as a hotel maid. I worked as a waitress. Took me 8 years to get through college because part of that time I wasn't sure what the heck I wanted to do. I was taking courses, moving forward, and enjoying myself, enjoying life. And then the light bulb went off. I can be an educator. I can give back to those that created my future, that made sure I would thrive. And so with that, I earned my degree in mathematics. I then went on. In California, you have to do a 5th year, so that's why it took 8 years. You have to do another year to get your education degree, which I did. And then I moved to Las Vegas. I started at Von Tobel Middle School, moved on to Green Valley High School. There were 120,000 kids in our district at that moment in time. When I left, there were 320,000. So in between that time, I was blessed and honored to take advantage of the opportunities that were here within the Clark County School District. The job that I wanted more than anything was to be the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Professional Development. That was where I was going to stay forever, make sure that teachers had the resources that they need, the professional development that they need, all of those components that we know about good instruction. The superintendent came to me, Walt Ruffus, and said, I'd like you to be the Chief Technology Officer. Yes, your face looks just like mine. I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he said, Joan, you know how to engage with people. You know technology, instructional technology. My background, I did take a COBOL class in college, but you understand what needs to happen in our environment and how to lead. And so during that time, I was blessed and honored to work with amazing people in our technology department. We replaced the student information system. It was failing almost nightly. If you asked me how many students were absent that day, it would take us 3 days to get that information. Then, I see Trustee Satori saying, yes, that's true. Then we implemented the student information system, which exists today, and I'm really proud that it does. Not only does it exist in the Clark County School District, where you can contact your parents on a regular basis, but it is statewide. And so bringing things to scale is what I do. I'm excited about this opportunity. Education is who I am. There are some days that I say, you know what? I don't even need a paycheck. I just want to make sure that students are learning and that we're enjoying what we're doing each and every day. So what about this story and what we've been talking about and the challenges? And we hear it in the news all the time. Our academic performance, acquiring and retaining talent, money management. These are all symptoms. What we need to do is look at the root causes, and that's what I had the opportunity to do. And when I think about, and I want to oversimplify this, you have a headache. Someone comes to you with a headache. You give them aspirin. They come back to you and say, my headache's not gone a week later. Like, oh, you just got new glasses. Maybe they're too tight. We loosen up the glasses, the headache goes away. Still have the headache? Another person. Give you aspirin. Oh, guess what? You have allergies. Why am I giving you aspirin? Your headache is because of your allergies. We need to change your diet. Last example. I have a headache. When do you have a headache? Why do you have a headache? What's going on? When do you have a headache? Oh, when I'm reading. Maybe you need glasses. I share that as an example because we don't want to oversimplify and just identify all the symptoms. We have to get to the root causes of why we have those systems, which through the SWOT analysis, I was able to do. So how do we become the district we dream of becoming? Went through the analysis with the Climate and Culture Survey. This was produced by the Clark County School District in May of 2023. Also have the district-wide survey annually, the Nevada report card, superintendent leadership profile, and in the news. They are color-coded as I go through these slides. The SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The table's set, here we go. What is our strength? Our strength is our passion. When we recognize, incentivize, and energize the passion of 44,000 employees, to support our education, to support our students, there's nothing that can stop us. We have passion for science and inquiry, passion for critical thinking. We have passion for creation and invention. We have passion for civic engagement, passion for athletics, our passion for our arts, our culture, passion for service, and passion to share with the rest of the nation our excellence that we conduct each and every day in our schools. If we want our students to achieve excellence, we must re-energize this passion. The passion exists here in CCSD, but the organization isn't tapping into it. If we want our students to achieve excellence, we must re-energize this passion. We do this by creating student-centered learning environments. We infuse student voice and student choice into learning by allowing them to co-design curriculum and extracurriculars. We implement real-world lessons, project-based learning that connects our academics and careers. We transform our professional learning, making sure that it's differentiated. We have educators that are attending professional development that could be teaching the professional development. We need to make sure that changes and changes quickly. Finally, investing in every single staff member, whether I'm a teacher in the classroom, I'm an aide, I'm a bus driver, I'm the principal, assistant principal, or superintendent. When we energize this passion, we will and can move forward. So what is our weakness? Communication. The quality of our communication, the content of our communication, and the absence of our communications. From the Climate and Culture Review, 32% of our staff do not believe we are transparent about our communication and that our lack of information and input regarding their ability to be included in the decision-making. We have similar data with parent responses. We see that it has not just happened overnight, but it has been years. And so what have we been doing? Have we been listening to our parents, and how can we move forward? Understanding our goals. 38% of the staff said they understand the goals. If we've set goals as a team for our school district, and only a third of our staff understand the direction and where we're headed, where are the other 2/3 of our staff going? They may be heading towards our North Star, but we're not sure. This has been indicated in our data. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How is it going? Strengthening our communication. We need to make sure that we have feedback channels, that we implement anonymous surveys or suggestion boxes, that we're transparent in our decision-making, that our information is accessible, and we need to empower our school leaders to provide the information. It doesn't always have to come from central office. Our parents love their schools. Our parents care about their community. So why wouldn't we have our teachers and our schools be the one to deliver a message? In an organization this large, we need to make sure that the communication is tight in between the communications office and the teacher in the school, but it is doable. When I am empowered as an educator to deliver a message of the school district, my community understands I'm part of it, and parents understand that I am part of the decision making. Opportunity, partnership. We have so many opportunities in identifying first what we need to conduct community needs assessment to make sure that we can align our partnerships with our district vision and goals. We need to engage our parents, our teachers, our students in identifying potential partners. They know who's in our community. They know the people around their schools. Building relationships and key stakeholders, local businesses, corporations, our colleges and universities, faith-based organizations, working with our churches, making sure that our synagogues that are there to support after-school programs and family services. We need to make sure government and civic groups build relationships with city officials, law enforcement, and public health agencies. Establishing clear partnerships with MOUs, how you can enter into our school system and provide supports for us and our educators. I'm going to take a moment here and talk about something that we're very excited during the last legislative session that came to fruition. increasing our per pupil funding $25,000 or 25% increase. As your state superintendent, I was extremely proud of this work, and it was with the governor in a bipartisan way. And you talk about partnerships that were conducted and needed to happen to make this systems change. When you look at these qualifications as a superintendent leadership profile, we're looking at systems change. To create a movement, you have to unify, in this instance, an entire state, not only a district, to make this change. The role of the team that I led was there to demonstrate the return on investment. And so we were there to make sure the legislators knew that by investing in education, you would have a return on that investment. Starting with early on, Zoom and Victory Schools. That program, it wasn't made available statewide, right? You had to apply for a grant, and it was only for certain schools at that moment in time. But the student outcomes were amazing, and that drove the decision to change a 54-year-old funding formula. Think about that. It was 54 years old. Our demographics within our state and our school district were not the same 54 years ago. We needed to make sure that we were funding our students, our ELL students, our at-risk students, our GATE students, our special education students, because we know our students can. Given the right resources, when we meet our students where they're at, they can achieve. If we want our students to achieve excellence, we must engage in innovation and partnerships. We know that if we are innovative and we have partnerships, we will remove work from our teachers' plates. We need to let people into our school building. We need to have the after-school activities and engage our entire community. This slide here I'll use as another example of work at scale and meeting people where they're at. There are over 100 partnerships on this slide. And I provided you a copy in the backup materials of the Nevada Portrait of a Learner. It took all of us traveling across the entire state to look at where we want to go as a system and how students can learn. That's the first 100 days. Can you pull up the, thank you. Great, and then scroll down. So we're looking at what business and, quite frankly, what our students want to engage in. They want to know the why of what is transpiring in our learning. We engaged over 100 partners to develop this document. Now, this doesn't mean that we're moving away from the curriculum. What it means is we're enhancing the curriculum and where students can see that they're at. You have purposeful impact, resilience and courageousness, intellectual agility, integrity, and first and foremost at the top of that list, reflect on my own personal strengths and unique qualities to leverage them in all aspects of our life, my life in this instance. These are questions that we can ask ourselves as adults. We have 6 school districts across the state that are implementing either the Nevada Portrait of a Learner or they've used this as a base to create their own Portrait of a Learner. There are schools within the Clark County school districts that are using it, as well as our charter school authority and a few schools in Washoe County School District. Thank you. If we can go to the next slide. So what is our threat? Lack of trust. Building trust in an urban school district requires transparency, consistency, and active engagement with our students, parents, and staff. District-wide survey. The district is transparent and open about how we operate, 33%. I am proud of CCSD, 29% of our staff and teachers. It's been noted in many of the presentations, but here are the numbers. Choice, I do believe in choice for our students and parents. We want the Clark County School District to be the #1 choice for all of our students and parents. There are students here in the Valley. I know that the Clark County School District has been declining in enrollment, but it's not because there are fewer students. It's because people are making a choice not to participate in our education system. If we want our students to achieve excellence, we must rebuild the trust. To be an organization that achieves excellence for our students, we need to make sure we're putting the trust and that we have education and acceleration for our students first. Trust we are being honest and transparent. Trust we are good stewards of public resources and dollars. And trust we are listening and responding to critical feedback. So set the stage for the framework, for the SWOT analysis. But what about a framework for moving forward? Re-energizing the passion, the communication, the partnerships, and building trust. The first thing that we would do as a team is to engage the entire community and co-create a vision. We do need to get in our cars and travel the 8,000 square miles that are here in our wonderful school district and meet people where they're at, go to their schools, have the conversation, not just for an hour. It may be half a day. It may be all day. But we need to stay and listen and create the vision for our school district to be able to move forward. We also then, taking that vision, need to generate improvement funds. And by doing that, we will engage with philanthropy to make sure that our resources are going where they are intended to go and to meet our students where they're at. Triage teams we do have a crisis in many areas of our instructional work, and so we'll have triage teams, and then we'll prioritize our projects. I bring this up as an example. In 2011, we conducted an educational and operational efficiency study. It took months to produce, but it actually found where we could have cost savings in the work that we had done. We made sure we were more efficient and effective in our work, and it created about $30 million in annual savings. So we were more efficient, we had cost savings, and then we can then take those funds and drive them into the classroom. The talent teams, having here triage teams, it's a medical term. In technology, call them tiger teams. But to make sure that we're looking at our academics and diving in where we need support the most. Talent team addressing our passion, customer service for communication, innovation, partnerships, and accountability for trust. Finally, once we identify our priorities, we need to make sure that we're moving forward and being clear, open, and transparent about what we've chosen. The list will probably go from 1 to 1,000. There are a lot of things we need to tackle in the Clark County School District, and we need to lay them all out and make sure that we hit #1, that we're going for that, and that we're clear that number 1,000 is there on the list, but it's going to take us time, energy, and resources to get. Sometimes when we create that list and we ask for what we're doing, we're not clear we only address the top 3 items that we're looking at. We need to make sure that people know, no, we know there are 1,000 things we need to do, but this is where we're going to drive and allocate our resources first. Closing out, I started with, how do we become the district we dream of becoming? To transform this district into a district of excellence, which I know we can do, turn the dream into reality. We need to define our own vision, unified, inspiring vision that reflects the hopes of our students, parents, families, community, and educators. Make the vision actionable. We need to shift the mindset. We are not just a school district, we are a movement for success. Elevating student success as our North Star, reigniting passion, empowering our educators, strengthening our communication and trust, building unbreakable community partnerships. If there's one takeaway from this conversation, it's this. I bring what Clark County School District needs most. And that's the ability to achieve impact at scale. First, we must address the root cause, not the symptoms. Second, we must be able to create a movement. I'll address each of these in turn. Regarding number one, the root cause of CCSD ills is the lack of student engagement we see in declining enrollment, chronic absenteeism, and poor achievement.
Ms. Ebert, if we could bring it to a close? 'Cause that
Sure.
would be 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. When it comes to student engagement, the secret sauce is this. Relevance, meaning purpose, drives interest. Interest drives choice and engagement. Engagement drives learning, and learning drives performance. Number two, to ignite the movement takes three things. You have to be an idea generator. That's someone who comes up with good ideas. You need to be an incubator. That is someone who can nurture those little green shoots. You have to be a scaler, and that is someone that has good ideas, and that's the result of a movement. I'd be honored to be selected as your next superintendent. Thank you for your time and listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. Let's give a round of applause for the presentation. At this time, the trustees have an opportunity to ask questions. Our goal is to be concise with the question to allow you enough time to respond. It'll be up to 3 minutes. I will monitor so that we all get a chance. Trustee Stevens.
Hi, Ms. Ebert. Thank you so much for your presentation. One of the things you mentioned in your presentation that I liked was the triage teams, but I do wonder who would make up those teams. One of the things that we've been that I've heard from the community about the school district is it tends to be a bit top-heavy. And so I'm wondering if the triage teams is made up of central office folks, or is it made up of community folks? Is it made up of teachers, educators, staff? Who would make up the triage teams?
So in each of those areas, you hit the nail on the head. It is not just central office staff coming in to provide support. You need to have teachers, you need to have administrators, you need to have the community members. You also need to have our technology staff. Being able to find those solutions in context. It's one thing to say this is a need, but we need to go in as a team. It's the second level of instruction. Tier 1, we have strong tier 1 support. Now we're looking at tier 2 and tier 3 as a system. I know that Clark County School District leans in on multi-tiered systems of support. We provide that support at the state level. And so implementing that and making sure that we have the experts coming in and not staying forever. They are there, they do their work, and then they move on to the next school or the next issue that may be transpiring.
Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it. My question is regarding the Portrait of a Nevada Learner. Can you speak a little bit more to, you said there were some schools in the district doing it, doing that currently, of how you see it implemented, how you see us achieving some of those things that were laid out there. Just a little more to that process.
Yes, absolutely. So this was an opt-in at the state level, and I would imagine this would happen as an opt-in at the school district level. People need to be prepared and wanting to move to that next level of achievement. And so you have several principals that have raised their hand and said, I am ready. And they have taken on and looked at competency-based learning because these are competencies, these are durable skills. We've also brought in partners, the Carnegie Foundation, who invented the Carnegie Unit, right? Seat time, 120 hours is what it would take to learn something. We know that that was invented in 1904. We need to change that. And so the amount of time and instruction that students need to achieve certain goals varies. And so we need to meet the children where they're at. We need to deploy this. First, actually, we have excellent schools, and we have schools that have testified that by using this, students are more engaged in their learning, and their test scores have gone up as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan?
Thank you, Mrs. Ebert, for that presentation. You know, I will say it was kind of similar, but I'm going to switch my question to a different one. You talked about empowering school leaders, but when you said leaders, you mentioned teachers, principal, parents, like the entire community. So one of the things that I'm hearing a lot is people don't feel that they have autonomy. Teachers don't when I talk to them, administrators, and even students by not having choice. So can you talk to me about like AB 469 and how would you empower school leaders and families and students?
What I've seen over the last few years with AB 469 NRS 388G is a misinterpretation of what it is. It does empower our leaders to take advantage of opportunities pulling in their community. But I see a structure that's been built at central office level that is not allowing the principals to take full advantage and teachers to take full advantage. So there is a disconnect in interpretation and implementation within the Clark County School District. Also, too, with that bill and moving forward, we do need to look at, is it time to make a shift, right? Well-intended when it came out, but is the time for that work? Is that now? Is that how we should operate? Or is there a different way of operating? We need to look at that quickly, make a determination, and if there are any changes that we want to see in the legislation, we need to make that happen tomorrow.
Thank you. Trustee Dominguez?
There we go. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Is it Dr. Ebert?
It is not Dr.
It's not Dr. Ms. Ebert. Yes. I just want to make sure. So you mentioned achieve impact on scale. And so I'd like if you could take us through what that means and how that would be implemented.
Thank you very much for the question. So I've been in this school district before, as you know, 25 years. And in 2011, our graduation rate was 59%. 59% in the Clark County schools. People go, well, we used to be great. No, we actually had a 59% graduation rate. It was making sure that we had a responsible adult, just like myself as an example, that there was an adult. Every child knew that they had an adult in their life to achieve. We also use technology to find our children. At that moment in time, children would leave, and we weren't using the technology to find them and track them down. But it is starting with each and every student, each and every educator, knowing that they can do, providing them the tools and resources to do so, and the flexibility. We have over 370 schools. We cannot cookie cutter our way out of where we're at. What we need to do is make sure that each leader, as mentioned earlier, is empowered to lead. And if they need additional resources to move forward, that we're providing those specific resources through the triage teams to be able to succeed. That freedom is there to lead, but if they're not being successful, we also need accountability. It's a balance, making sure that we have guardrails as we move forward. But specifically to your question, at that moment in time, to see the gains in graduation rate going from 59% into the 70s just in 4 years was a team effort, knowing with a can-do attitude, not that we can't, that we can, and providing the resources to do so.
Thank you. Trustee Henry?
Thank you for your presentation. I know that you spoke a lot about the lack of trust and rebuilding trust, and also, you know, there's been a culture of retaliation within CCSD. I wanted to know what strategies you will deploy to rebuild trust in this area, and how will you hold those accountable?
Thank you for the question, and that just breaks my heart in retaliation. That is not acceptable anywhere, in any environment, especially in a school district. What are we teaching our children if that is happening? So number one, dealing with those issues head on, working with our associations, making sure that people have the skill set to deal with the hard truth. When I come to you with a problem and you do not agree with me, let's have a civil conversation. Let's talk about discourse. Let's talk about how we can move the universe forward together. We all need to be in a room to tackle what we have, and through that conversation, get to higher ground. So Retaliation is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. I know sometimes, too, that people feel they might be being retaliated against, and sometimes it is just someone having a conversation of how to do things differently. So also receiving information. So each instance you need to take separately, but retaliation should not exist in a school district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Ms. Ebert, for this presentation. What would your triage team look like in the area of transparency and communication? What would be the first steps that triage team would be taking?
Thank you for the question. Specifically with communication, we need to make sure that the people that we have within our communication department are well equipped to make sure that they can do their job. Starting first with teachers, making sure that we come in and meet teachers where they're at. Currently, I meet with teachers across the entire state. I just had my meeting with them last week. In making sure, it's listening, right? First off, in the communication, we always think about talking, but it is about listening to where people are at and how to move forward. And so making sure that we have clear and open and honest communication, making sure that we have everyone at the table. I'm sometimes accused of having too many people at the table, which I'm okay with, but we need to make a decision at that point in time. And so providing those resources, making sure we have the communication team, making sure that I'm at the table as well, that we have trustees at the table, that you're there, making sure that you have all of the information that you need to make decisions, and then we move forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Barron?
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, Madam Superintendent. State Superintendent, of course. The theme that I hear with you again and again, and definitely part of we decided that we're interested in, is this issue of transparency. We hear it again and again. When it comes to fiscal transparency, can you please give us one example of a method or something that you would implement to begin to build, the trust in our community in relation to fiscal transparency?
Thank you. So I think two things with transparency with the Clark County School District. One is making sure that we spend the time with all of the trustees, that you are fully informed of what the budget has and is, and that there is not the very first thing, and that is in the corrective action plan, is that we need to hire a highly qualified CFO yesterday. That work and how we work forward from there, making sure that all of it, and I guess I want to say two things. Number one is there is open book, which when I was in the school districts, that was a piece of transparency, making sure that it was online. The fact of the matter is, when you take open book and you look at all of those pieces, we need to revamp it so that it is understandable by our community, by our parents, by business, by the state, by our legislators. Our legislators do not feel that we're transparent with the information that we have. So it's over communicating, spending the time within the budget, making sure that there is examples of how the funding is used, and then also diving deep into individual school budgets as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti?
Hello, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Ebert. You shared with us the wonderful experiences you had as a child and the significant impact good educators had on you throughout your life, despite challenges you faced. You have achieved so much. Do you believe today's students can achieve the same success without systems of DEI incorporated into our education system?
So there are different definitions.
Yeah, let me interrupt, but Ms. Hebert, I know that DEI was not part of the presentation. Can you help me, Trustee Biasotti, was there something in the presentation that you saw that addressed that question?
Yes, when you explained the steps you went throughout your childhood, it just makes me wonder about the children that here in our county are experiencing the same challenges, and you got through them in life with good educators. I'm wondering if you feel today's students can achieve those without systems in place that we have now, like DEI, because, you know.
Keep going, keep going.
Systems, for example, DEI right now, through executive orders, they are calling for the elimination of that in our education system. I'm asking if you feel our students can achieve the same things you did, the same success, without that in our education system.
Yeah, I didn't see that in the presentation, but I just want to remind the audience that this is our business meeting. Please be respectful. So, Trustee Bisiadis, I want to call you Trustee B. Asadi. Let's re-examine your question. I'm going to go to the next trustee, but I'm going to try to find how I can make the question relevant to the presentation. So I'm going to go to Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. You spoke a lot about the triage team and being able to use that as a resource to prioritize some of the issues. My question is, how would you decide that, and how do you communicate back to the community or the district staff that it might not be in the priority, for as a whole, but how do you have that conversation and communication?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Zamora. With the triage teams, they will be cross-functional teams. And so, as I explained earlier, having a teacher, having a student, having a administrator, these are staff that we already have that are cross-cutting the system. It's doing a 360. Each one of these each person that is part of the triage team brings different perspectives. And when you pull them together and go in deeply in a specific area, let's talk about academics, right? We know that our students, only 50% of them in ELA right now are meeting their individual goals. Is it the instruction that is in the classroom? Is it the materials that are in the classroom? Very simply, very oversimplifying the example that I used with symptoms and how you address it. We know all of the different methodologies to solve, but we need to be strategic with the person that we have in front of us. Very similar to the medical field. When we're assigned a doctor, a nurse, they go in and they ask us questions, and we go deep into root causes, and then we pull in the experts in that area to meet where our individual needs are. That's what we would be doing within our school district.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson?
Thank you. Superintendent Eder, I appreciate the presentation. One of the things you highlighted pretty directly was the 26,000 students that are charter schools and other entities have grown since 2016, I think the number was. Anyway, the question is, what is the way that we can change the narrative to make CCSD the first choice for families versus the other options that families seem to be choosing over us today?
What we start with is what we said our biggest threat is, and that's trust. We need to be transparent in what we're doing in everything. There has been silence in some instances as a school district when we needed to own up that we had issues. We need to deal right away when people have questions. We need to make sure that retaliation is not part of our narrative. To sit here and hear that as a parent in a school district, is that where you want to send your child? That narrative of we can, we will, we need to be we are and we can be a destination school district. That is where we need to be. And it's capitalizing off of the positive aspects. And it is a big we. It is a massive we. It is me, it is you, it is our community, making sure when we're in the grocery store, when we hear things about the Clark County School District this or the Clark County School District that, we need to call it out. And we need to address it right then and there in the grocery store. I used to do it all the time. Can I help you? What is it that your issue is? And then when you start to have that conversation, it turns around and people understand what is transpiring. And then we make sure we're all part of the solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Henry?
Thank you again. In your presentation, you spoke to partnerships and the MOUs for organizations to come in. Currently, there's like a $10 million cybersecurity policy that's required for nonprofit organizations, especially those that are smaller. What would you do to streamline the process and make it more equitable for smaller nonprofit organizations to partner with the district?
Thank you for that question. So I'm not familiar with that specific requirement within the school district, but I definitely would work with our business and finance office. Also pulling in some other partners. Is that a best practice to have that high level of insurance when we have partners coming into our school district? And if it's not attainable, then how do we get to yes to make sure that both the school district is protected as well as those that are entering the school district, right? Insurance is important in many ways. And so creating that balance that we get to yes as we partner, and there are many creative ways to do that.
Thank you. Trustee Stevens?
So you talked about, in the very beginning, you mentioned re-energizing educators. So what steps would you take to accomplish that? Like, what does that look like?
I ask, I spoke earlier about my teacher group that I have, and we start out every single session about what's going well and what's not going well. And 99% of the time, people just want to be heard. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want you to know where they're at. We have a teacher that came in the other day that said she wasn't doing great. Why not? What's going on? She actually had her foundation in her house cracked and the pipes were going off and everything else. People bring themselves to work each and every day. We need to have empathy and understand where everybody is coming from. I think sometimes we think that I will say our teachers are superhuman in many ways, but they're also human. And we come to work each and every day. Teachers do, principals do, students come to work with things that we're not aware of. But if we teach ourselves how to communicate and to sit around a table and say, you know what? I'm not having a great day. The foundation in my house is, broke, whatever transpired. Let's talk about our educational environment and how we can move our classroom forward for the day, knowing what the situation is. Sometimes, and we've done it in the Clark County School District, where we have spaces where our students can take their time, right? The quiet zones. Sometimes our teachers need the same. And we need to have empathy and respect for who we are as humans and move the entire system forward.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti?
Hello. Okay, so rewording that, given your experience of success through challenges, how would you ensure our students who might be facing similar challenges achieve the same level of success?
Thank you for the question. It's about meeting each and every student where they're at and the diversity that we have within our school district. We are a diverse, and we need to embrace that. The work that we do with all of our students is important, and we need to see that they can be successful. Knowing and saying, Joan, you can be successful. You can take that physics class. You can enroll in Algebra 2. We need to make sure that every single child has that opportunity, that they know they can and can do, no matter their circumstances. I know you believe that. I've seen it in you. And we can get there together in all of the languages that we use. We can get there together to make sure all of our students achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. 2 minutes. Do we have 2 minutes? 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Go ahead, Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you. Ms. Ebert, you talked about taking something off of teachers' plates. We hear from teachers all the time, let us teach. So in the area of curriculum and instruction, specifically having to do with, so-called canned curriculum and what teachers would like to teach, how would you approach that? What would be one of the first things that you would find the balance on?
Yeah, empower our principals, empower our teachers. I actually did a throwback Thursday today with Gearing, They have done amazing work. And yes, they use the materials that are there, but they also use additional materials. And so what's happening at that 5-star school to make it work? We have other 5-star schools. We have schools that are not 5 stars. I actually used Tate the other day. If I was a newcomer into this school district, I would move to make sure that my kids were at Tate Elementary School, pre-K, biliterate, social services, community school. That is where I would need to be if I was moving from out of the country. And so only going in and understanding what is transpiring at that school. I know that the NSPF is what we're using today, but I've been advocating at the federal level with my colleagues to change the requirement of our accountability system and also our assessment system. We have great educators. They need to be able to teach. We need to change some of the structures, the entire system that we have. And given the opportunity, I would absolutely love to change the system here as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That ends our questioning time, and we want to give our candidate a round of applause. Thank you, Ms. Ebert.
Thank you.
We are going to take a 10-minute break, so if you could come back at 7:01, we will resume our next portion of our agenda. Okay, we're going to resume our meeting. We're going to go ahead and go to item 2.02. I do want to let the audience know, and those watching online, that completed our first round of interviews of the 4 candidates that this team decided to listen to their presentations. There is an opportunity for us today, which is agenda item 2.02. It'll be to decide on who we want the community to meet. During that item, we were also going to discuss the interview questions that we had discussed last night. We had an opportunity to be able to share with the search firm which questions we wanted. And then we also are going to be looking at a revised timeline. There's an opportunity for the community to participate on March 10th or 11th. The details were still being worked out, but there will be an opportunity for the community forum, which will be live streamed and accessible to all. I do want to just read a statement that this has been a great journey for us as a team. We're learning. It's our second month together as a team, but fairness is important to us. And so in order to ensure that our selection of the candidates that we would like to move forward to the next round of interviews, we're going to be following this process. We will engage in discussion of the candidates, we'll entertain public comment, and then we'll entertain a motion for the candidates to move forward. It'll be made by me, and then it'll be second, and then we will vote on who we decide to move forward. So with that, I'm going to go invite our search firm to come forward. We're first going to talk about the interview questions, and so Dr. Perez.
Great. Tonight there is reference material to the questions that were submitted after last night's meeting. Those were compiled and then presented back to the board tonight. Those are not, that's not the right reference. Let me pull up.
And we're going to break this, there's 3 parts to 2.02, so we're going to break it up. And we're going to have public comment after each one before we take a vote.
Great. So questions were submitted by the trustees. If there were common questions, then a trustee's secondary question was included. And so we do have a list of questions that will be asked on March 11th, which is the second round of interviews with the board. However, it's important to note that these are springboard questions and that anything, just like tonight, that the candidate begins to talk about, then relative to these questions that probe the very big areas of school governance and leadership, then the trustees can then dive in and do follow-up questions to dive in a little bit deeper with those answers. And so what we'd like to have for tonight is an approval of these questions so that there's an even playing field for each of the candidates. These will be the springboard questions, and then of course the trustees will ask any follow-up questions relative to the answers that are given.
Thank you. And there is a second sheet, right, to that?
Yes, there's a second page to that as well.
There we go.
They are.
So each trustee has a question to ask, and these are our starter questions. Just like we did today, if there's enough time, we may be able to ask more. But these are the starter questions. And so at this time then, I would like to open it up to public comment. Dr. Bimo, Marie, if you're, yeah, she's still here, and then Vicki Kreidel.
Madam President?
Oh.
Madam President?
Oh, yes.
Discussion first. So
Oh, yes,
please
I
open it
forgot
up for
about
this-
that. Yes, thank you so much. Discussion? Any questions from the trustees about our interview questions? Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. And deferring to Dr. Perez, if we have questions on here, in all fairness to the candidates, and so when we do have these interviews, if we have a multifaceted question, I would ask that we use some discretion with the help of our entire team and with our consultant, that it's not something that would be kind of a roadblock for them to try to answer, because I see one question here that is about 3 or 4 different parts. So I would ask that maybe we try to condense that. I will use my own question as an example. If you look at the second question that's there, I kind of combined the two factors so that it would not be difficult for the candidate to answer. So I would ask that we do that with all the questions.
Thank you, trustee, for the suggestion. Any other, trustee Biasotti?
I would like to follow up with that and just say that I don't believe we should modify the questions. I think they very much are representative of what our pending issues are. We have already put that forth, and I appreciate that they are being presented. And so adjusting or modifying our questions feels as a kind of being cut off or censored, and I don't care for that. Thank you.
Thank you. The way that I took it is that if we can be as concise as possible with our question, that's how I took it. Because if we are concise, then it allows the candidate to be able to spend more time answering it. So nothing about censorship, but more about being concise. That's how I'm taking it. Dr. Perez, do you want to answer?
Yeah, and my only recommendation would be to ask the question, even if there's a few of them that are leading to one another in the same topic area, ask it all at once, and then allow the candidate to decide how they're going to answer really that topic. Because some of these longer ones, they do really kind of build off of one another. So I would say just don't go back and now the next one and now the next one. Give the candidate the opportunity then to just answer based on that topic. And again, you know, I do want to reiterate that because all these interviews are public, the idea that the first person would go first and not know any of the questions, and then the second and third, or whoever many would know them all, it makes sense, again, to have these springboard questions public that's fair across the board for all the candidates.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perez. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, public comment, Dr. Beamel, and then Marie Nisus.
Good evening, Dr. Tiffany Beamel for the record. It's interesting because I was told not to come and talk tonight, and Trustee Henry kind of hit the nail on the head because of retaliation. And if the new person who gets elected as superintendent doesn't like what you have to say, they can retaliate against you. So I found that a very interesting question, and just considering the situation. You're looking for somebody who's going to move our needle and somebody who's going to make change in our district. And there's not been a lot of change in our state with regard to what's happening in our ranking, in our reading, in our math, and in our writing. I think that it behooves our students, our teachers, and our community to continue what you started in looking for change, not just sticking with the same old. It is kind of interesting, again, to look at what happened in the last 2 days and listen to what was going on. I was at a presentation at UNR yesterday talking about dual enrollment and listening to college professors and college entrance people telling the group of us that were there, our students aren't ready for college, and here are the reasons why. And then listing all of the things that we have been doing wrong in CCSD and Nevada as a result of the educational practices that have been in play for the last 5 years. I just really think that you need to look at this holistically, and anybody can make a really pretty presentation and can come up and talk nice, right? But at the end of the day, you have to find somebody who really wants to make this better, to do what's best for our students, our teachers, our staff, and our community as a whole. And if it is retaliation against me, so be it. I mean, it is what it is. But I will tell you that that warning came not from one, not from two, but about 26 different people telling me, don't go speak, because if this happens, if X happens, Y will happen to you. And that was a very ironic question that you asked tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the audience, I just want to let you know is that 2.02 has like 3 parts. Our interview questions, the review of our timeline for March 10th and 11th, and then who we want the community to meet as far as the candidates. So right now we're on part A, the interview questions. So, but that's where we are. Marie, I don't know if you want to speak to this one, right?
No, I
could
want to
say-
speak to part three.
Okay,
Thank
part
you.
3. I will call you back up. Is there anybody here for part A, interview questions? Dr. Lazos and Miss Anna Binder.
Does this work? Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Trustee Bustamante Adams, for clarifying that there is a three-parter here. And I myself have been thinking about this whole process from kind of a little bit of an academic perspective. There is an article in Psychology Today I will send you all the link to called "Job Interviews Are Useless and Unfair." So one of the concerns that I've had with this process that's been set up with HYC, and I've experienced it as an academic, faculty hire other faculty. We hire our colleagues. And what we count the most is usually the interview, which is a little bit similar to this. It's kind of a show and tell of an academic subject. They talk for an hour. We ask questions. We interview them in a poor room. Maybe we give them some coffee. And then we decide whether to extend an offer or not. And that process does lend itself to a high error rate. That's the point of the Psychology Today article. How can you correct? I mean, you have this process already, so we can't go back. So how can we do as much as possible to correct? So one thing that I like are these questions, because the more unstructured the process is in terms of questions, the more it lends to, for example, you have somebody here who is a Spartan from Lansing. I hate Spartans because I went to University of Michigan. So if he would have said anything about the Spartans, I would have stopped listening immediately. What is the relevance of that to being a superintendent, right? So there's a lot of stuff, extraneous stuff, that feeds into our biases, and that interview that lasts an hour can just go completely off. So structured questions are a good thing, and sticking to the structured questions, agreeing on the criteria as you have, are good. What I am concerned about, though, are these emails that you get, and I know you're getting them, that are some of them are just flat out lies, and some of them may be some kind of personal bullshit that happened that none of you know about.
Dr.
Is
Lazos, let's use correct words.
I'm sorry, I do this in class, but I teach adults. Let's get a method of verifying these stories that are coming out. Last time we had somebody here that interviewed that basically, in lawyer talk, we call it puffery. It just means gross exaggeration of what you have achieved. You have had a lot of claims here. I did this, I did that, I did the other. Who's going to check up on that and make sure that what these people are saying was actually accomplished? So I'm also concerned about that. Lastly, the best predictor of what you're going to do is what you did in the past. So please remember that as we go through the process.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on Part A, the interview questions? We're going to take a vote. Okay, Ms. Binder, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, and I am here for the questions. So I know I've never brought my children to these board meetings in all these years, but I don't know if you can see it, but I have a son of color, and I have a son who is in our special education program. So what I'm about to say, some people in this community might not take it the right way. And Madam President, I was prepared to be kicked out of this meeting to stand up for children like mine in this community tonight. First of all, a trustee asked a question of our only candidate who is a woman of color tonight. And I am sorry, I was about to launch out of my chair, and thank you guys so much for having the question corrected. I honestly just could not believe it. Anna Binder, for the record. Education isn't just about what's in the curriculum. It's about the kind of community we want to build. Some people want to push a one-sided agenda, but that's not what school is for. We're here to teach kids how to think, not what to think. Critical thinking, empathy, and understanding different perspectives. That's what real education looks like. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs aren't some political ploy. They make sure every student feels like they belong. They don't push an agenda. They create an environment where all students, no matter who they are, can succeed. Getting rid of these programs in the name of patriotism isn't just a bad idea, it's harmful, and honestly, it's not who we are. Nevada is one of the most diverse states in the country. Paradise was ranked number 9. Vegas was number 22 in 2004. That's not a weakness, that is our strength. That's what you hear when they say we're battle-born. Our students deserve an education that actually prepares them for the world they're going to live in, a world where they'll have to work with people from all walks of life. We need to stop with the fear-mongering and make sure our schools reflect the values of inclusion and respect that actually make Nevada great. The Nevada way.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Anybody else? And for interview questions? Okay, then I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the interview questions. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan.
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve the questions as presented at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson?
I'd second the motion.
Thank you. With that, please cast your votes. Okay, though that passes 7-0. Our next part B, now we're going to talk about the revised timeline, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Perez.
Sorry, so in the packet tonight, if you can, that's it. Thank you very much. We have before us the second round of interviews. The top version is if there are 3 candidates that move forward. The second one is if there's 2. We certainly can have one of 4. The point of the matter is that the board has decided to include the community in the process. There will be an opportunity for parents and students to connect with the candidates, staff, the community at large. Of course, the board will interview again. There will be the administration and also union leaders. And so depending on the candidates that move forward, this will be updated and then put on the superintendent search website, as well as we'll be using the different modes of communication that CCSD normally uses in order to get the word out about these different opportunities. And so the community can expect that on March 10th, there will be opportunities to engage with the finalists from 5 to 8 p.m. And that will be changed slightly based on where we land tonight, but certainly stay tuned. Check out the website for the final information in terms of location, room numbers, etc.
Thank you. This time we'll have discussion. Any questions? Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. Now I'm going to try to remember my question from yesterday, but I remember it had to do with the Google Forms, just making sure how we will be sharing that out for the folks who want to submit questions beforehand.
Great. So there will be a form that will be available for those that cannot attend in person to submit questions. That form will be available on the superintendent search webpage on the district site, and it will literally just collect questions. That will be open this Friday, and it will go through next Thursday, so the 28th through the 6th. Then we will compile all those questions on Friday in order to have them ready for the event on March 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan.
Thank you, Madam President. This is more of a technical question for our personnel, not for you, Dr. Perez. So if you would indulge, we have been very inclusive in our process. I remember that when we did our online survey, we made sure that it was in multiple languages. I believe we picked, 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. So what I'm asking for is we have the capacity to make sure that we do have interpreters with headsets. So I just want to ensure that we have that for our community that speaks other languages. So that is something I'm just putting in as a request.
Thank you so much. Duly noted. Trustee Johnson?
I can't remember. I think this was asked, and maybe talked about it really quickly. What's the protocol for our board on the 10th as it relates to our presence at any of those spaces?
So they are public events. You certainly can attend them. We would just like to know for courtesy if you are going or if you're not, just to alert people. But other than that, they are public events.
What's your recommendation?
To go to the community one, because oftentimes staff and parents like to have a little bit more of an intimate and closed atmosphere so that they feel that they can speak more freely. But they're all open, but I would recommend to go to the community one.
Thank you.
Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. This was also a question I was remembering from yesterday, too. As far as I've had a couple of constituent questions asking about the moderators, who they will be, and what will be the vetting process for the questions.
Great. So the moderators will be those that the community has become familiar with. Dr. Kawita Adams, who has been here and doing a lot of the focus groups, Dr. Sean Joseph, and myself. We will be in the 3 different rooms for the evening. There will be cards available, and individuals will submit those cards. We'll take them in order, but when a question has already been asked, we then will simply not ask that question. When the cards, and there's no more questions from the cards, we will then go to the ones that were submitted beforehand, and those will have been gone through so that duplicates will have been eliminated so that we can be as efficient as possible, get to as many questions as we possibly can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Trustee Barron?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I'm very happy to see that, of course, we have, our friends from the media here covering. In regard to this, will we be inviting members who, of course, are of the alternative media? And by that, what I mean is there are local Latino influencers who they have way more people who tune into them, right? La Pulga. I don't own any stock in La Pulga, but they'll have 50, 60,000 people at a time, tuning in. Will they be able to have? Yeah, I see people who have no idea what I'm talking about. Believe me, they're out there. They exist, right? And I don't know if anyone knows this, but more people get their news from their cell phone and from social media influencers than they do from traditional sources. So, how are we going to have a plan to make sure that we reach out to them? I mean, I don't think it should be Barone calling them up and telling them to show up, right? Are we going to have somehow some outreach to them to make sure that they're included? Because like right now, in these how should I say, interesting times, a lot of people are tuning into them for information.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Before you respond, I'm going to ask our staff.
That's what I was just going to do.
From communications, our leader, Mr. Story, to come forth.
Madam President, trustees, we're happy to work with HYA to make sure that we blanket all of the media and that everybody gets the same advisory with all of the information included. I just wanted to add that we'll also make sure that the QR code for the form is included, and we'll post that on social media as well. So we'll make sure to cover all the bases.
Thank you. Does that help, Trustee Barron?
Sort of. Just again, I know that after this, a couple of them are going to ask me, so where do I find the information, right? And remember, a couple of them are more Spanish-centric. So I guess for the record, where will they be able to find the information?
Well, I would say first and foremost, the website. The web page has every single thing that we've done relative to this search on it, and it will have this event. It will have all the times. It will have all the information. So I would say that would be your first stop to just drive all traffic to the superintendent search webpage on the CCSD website.
Okay. And from what I know, several of them do have media credentials. So I guess, that's what will be, I guess that's what will differentiate them, correct? And of course, they'll have, if they have any questions, we also have a contact, bilingual contact on the web.
So,
on our website? Sure. Madam President, trustees, Todd Story for the record, yes. We will make sure in the advisory process, right, that we get that to all media. We will make sure to coordinate who's going to attend RSVP, make sure they've got the information, and we'll make sure that they're allowed to participate.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Trustee Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Perez, I had a question. If we had determined the high school that we would be, if today's the day we're going to decide, and my second question was a little bit to my colleague, Trustee Ramon Esparza-Stravigan, was if we did get interpreters, would that be an additional cost? Would that be a HYA, staff, additional cost for that, or would that be CCSD staff? So,
right. So I'm going to call Joe up to talk about the location, Mr. Caruso, for the record, and then I'm also going to have him talk about the Clark County interpreters that are available within your own system.
Madam President, good evening. So to Dr. Perez's point, the question in regards to location. So the center of town, if we think about it geographically, so the Las Vegas Boulevard, for lack of better words, we were trying to find a school that, one, was all-inclusive. So the first school that came to mind was Valley, for example, Valley High School, Sahara and Eastern. Trustee Esparza-Stoffergan knows it well. The concern there is the theater is on the outside of the building, so you would have people go from the inside to walk outside. So then we started to think of other buildings, and Trustee Barone came to mind with Rancho. So we were able to reach out to the principal Friday night, Dr. Smith. I have not met him personally, but he was very nice to work with and has offered to host. So what's nice about Rancho is an all-inclusive. I know that you weren't here when we did the meetings in the fall, but some of the trustees will remember that the weather was inclement. So we had some windy nights, so we had outdoors where you're walking between corridors. It became awfully windy. The nice part about the inside is that we'll be able to use the theater, the library, and the cafeteria to host. It's all closed, and that way there, hopefully, weather permitting or not, we don't have to worry about that. So that is confirmed for the 10th, so we're fortunate on that. In regards to the interpreters, we have an amazing staff that the two wonderful people out front who work. We'll work with them to make sure that we have them. Our sign language interpreters will also, that's a little bit tricky of a piece because they'll actually be housed here. So we'll have to work internally to figure that out because the fact that if we're going to live stream it from the town hall perspective, so we'll have to figure out how that'll work. But because we're only doing the one live stream, it's a little bit easier. I will tell you that working with Vegas PBS, they'll have to bring out the whole crew. So that's an expense that Vegas PBS will work internally with Todd Story and Communications to absorb that expense as well. So it's a lot to do a road show. There's a lot of behind the scenes. You know, I always say the devil's in the details, and that's a prime example. But we are working behind the scenes to do that. We just need the board to say, yes, we want to do it at Rancho, and then we can start executing tomorrow. So hopefully that answered all the questions.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Trustee Barone triggered a question for me. What is your plan to basically have crowd control? Because I know we're going to have questions being asked, but what if the audience, you know, starts speaking up, you know, and it gets a little bit out of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your plan?
So can I have you guys back up here again? This would be the staff from Clark County.
So Trustee Zamora, so Todd, one of the things that we did is have a conversation ahead of time to say, look, I'm going to need the media team's help, communications team. So Todd's been great to say, yes, let us know what we can do. So they'll be there with his staff to help us to make sure that we have the support. So we'll basically pair a district person with search firm person so that we'll have, and then of course myself, Todd, will be floating between the rooms to make sure everything's okay. We will have to bring school police in just to make sure that they're on site, especially if the trustees are going to be there. But as Dr. Perez said, you know, we want to make sure that we provide this opportunity, but there are a lot of logistics that we have to plan and make sure that we're ahead of time, especially since it's, you know, coming quick.
So the only ask I have is if it's possible to have the CCSD PD be more in the background, because we definitely want to create a safe environment, right? And just the state that we're in, I would love to see if that can just be the absolute plan B, if they can just be far away from all of this if possible.
Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Thank you. And Joe, this is kind of, you said the devil's in the details. So my question was about the capacity for each of those rooms. And then Dr. Perez, do you anticipate that there could be any between, you know, the community members, media, all of that exceeding that capacity? Was kind of the backup plan if that were to happen? Or do you think like with the streaming option that we won't have that concern?
Well, if we use the focus groups as a indication of what will come out for the actual in-person, I don't believe that we will have a problem. The community one is also live stream, and we just know from all of the work that we do, particularly in Clark County, people prefer to be online and to watch online or to participate online. And so this I anticipate will get a larger turnout than the focus groups, But the largest focus group that we had was about 40 people.
And
Thank
trust-
you.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
And Trustee Satori, to your point, so originally when we had thought of doing this on March 25th, the suggested plan was to do this at Las Vegas Academy because the Performing Arts Center seats 1,000 people. The challenge with moving it up to the 10th is that the garage structure is not completed yet. So I actually went down there with Trustee Zamora and Trustee Johnson. We actually toured the facility, and the foreman said, the garage isn't going to be available till then. So that would have been the ideal spot because of that capacity. I will tell you with Vegas PBS and the cameras, Marilyn, who's in the booth right now, she knows those cameras are big tripods and they bring out a big crew for it. So yes, it's going to be maneuvering, but as Dr. Perez said, attending all the focus meetings, the largest group was 40, so I think hopefully we'll be okay.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan?
Dr. Perez, I just want to thank you for hanging with us. You did an outstanding job for the community forums when we collected feedback for the leadership profile. I attended 3 sessions specifically to just witness your process and also to hear, right, what people were wanting. My question is the format that you utilize for that, would you do the same for this?
The format is just a little bit different because it's less of a conversation, right? There'll be questions and then the candidates will be giving answers similar to what's tonight. But there will be an opportunity also for the community to give feedback rather via an exit form, via feedback form that I think will be helpful to the trustees. It will literally focus on the different areas of the desired characteristics in the leadership profile and provide an opportunity for the respondent to rate how well they think that candidate has done on a Likert scale relative to that area, assets they bring. And so it will be forced choice, but I think it will provide some good insight and at least some feedback to the people who have come out and attended these events.
Can I do a follow-up? Thank you for that specific, because it is a different process. I, speaking as an individual, will not be attending because I do want to respect the space and the ability for safe sharing to be exchanged. But I do want to ask, and I thought it was helpful how you guys set the norms straight in the very beginning of what it would be and what kind of parameters were for if anyone was being unprofessional or inappropriate. And so I think that was helpful it wasn't that particular space, but I think to Trustee Zamora's point, I just want to remind your group, because you do this so well, you're the experts, but it was really helpful when that was done.
I appreciate the feedback and we'll make sure we set those protocols at the beginning of the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti?
Hi. So considering that this meeting will run late into the evening, I just would like to voice my concern in requesting that our CCSD PD stay in the background. I would like them more up front and, close to the community. There's constituents that are coming from all over the valley, and they do need to feel safe and secure. A lot of the community is passionate and disagrees and can become menacing and, blurt out threats here and there. So I want to make sure that not only us, the trustees, are safe, but so are the community that's going to be turning out. So regardless of what that looks like, I do want to put safety first. Thank you.
So we'll defer to Clark County on that, but I will say this. Every time I've been here, these wonderful security personnel, police departments, they've walked me outside. They're just really, really thoughtful and really helpful. And they really make you, I think, feel very good. And so we will defer to your normal protocols. Certainly the staff is all here to hear that tonight. But I just want to say that having been coming here now for 6 months, I've really appreciated the feeling that I have every time I come and walk out late at night into the parking lot. So I appreciate that, Trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Barron?
Thank you very much, Madam President. And Dr. Perez, thank you so very much for guiding us through this far. I just want to make a couple of comments. Number one, Rancho High School is probably a really good location. Yeah, I know I taught there for only 28 years and did my student teaching there and graduated from their class of 1987. Well, it's okay. I have class of 1988 here and someone else overseeing the whole thing. Only class of 1986. And I can go on and on. But hey, no, but in all seriousness, if you can make it to Cashman Field, you can make it to Rancho High School. We actually have pretty close connectivity to two major freeways, 15 and 95, major arterial, lots of parking, and I live in that neighborhood, and I can testify to you that it's safe. Okay, just to put this out there, North Las Vegas does not lead the state in violent crime. By the way, I'm on the North Las Vegas City Council. I'm very happy to say that. And, you know, I can all but guarantee you that will be taken care of. They cut you off.
Oh, I didn't cut you off. No, that wasn't me.
And by the way, people, we do have a Las Vegas address, but it's actually North Las Vegas. So you will definitely have CCSD PD will be running the show. But if need be, you'll also have North Las Vegas and Metro to back us up. We're safe.
Thank you, Trustee Ladron. I don't see anybody else in the queue for questions. I think, yep. Okay, this is where we have public comment. This is the section on we are reviewing the revised timeline. If you'd like to come forth for this portion, is there anybody for this portion on the revised timeline? Mr. Gomez? Mr. Abraham?
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president. We were talking about communication and how people are going to find out where and how they're going to be advised of when this is happening. Well, crap. I hope that's okay to say. You know, the problem is that I get a message for everything. Catherine missed this, Catherine missed that, David missed this, Joshua missed this, Antonio missed this. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Man, how many misses do they do in this class? What is going on? And then I have really good teachers that keep up on their job. I mean, these guys are like on par. They send me messages about everything. So if we can use the same messaging system to advise and inform everyone, even if it takes 3 days, maybe you should start today. Maybe you should start tomorrow. I don't know. And let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Please click this to go to the website. Please click this to see the QR code or wherever, get the Google form. There is a way to do this. And just to let you know, David Gomez did recommend this, okay? Just in case something else come up. So, you know, this is one of those things where if we can find a way to communicate with parents on a constant basis and the community, we can do it the same way because each one teach one, each one tells one, you know, in the community. We all talk to each other. So I'm pretty sure they'll say, hey, did you get this? Hey, did you get this? Hey, we're having this going on. And more than likely, most parents in the Latino community say, hey, we have this going on. I know what Isaac's talking about, La Puga. You know, there are some people out there that do a lot of social media, and they have a tremendous amount of Latino followers. So, you know, if there's a will, there's a way. If there's no will, then forget about the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Abraham Camejo for the record. I am glad to hear that Rancho High School is being considered for the location. I am on the SOT team for Rancho High School. I'm also an alumni. Mr. Barron was also my teacher at one point, so we can blame him for things I know. And I also was taught by Chris G. So I am a product of the school district. Talking about inviting our community, yes, I agree. La Pulga does get a lot of followers. I currently have friends messaging me right now, asking me questions when the town hall meeting is at. So I believe that we do need to do a little better on advertising, maybe take out a Facebook ad and blast it. You'd be surprised what the targeting you can do with $100 on Facebook. Also, regarding security and personnel at the school. So I'm very familiar with Rancho. As much as I love our police officers and those serving in the line of blue, I also would like to make a recommendation that we invite some of the detectives to be inside the crowd, but not wearing their full uniforms. Currently, our community is somewhat afraid of our men and women that are serving our communities with the badge. So if we can still have that protection, but if we can blend them in and use our detective services accordingly, so that way we're not going to scare any of our parents or our community members that would like to come out. So I would obviously defer to those plans with the chief of police and have those plans implemented. Obviously, we do want to have the metal detectors present, but we also don't want to, once again, scare away our communities. We want to make sure that this town hall is inviting, and that way we can have a formal engagement moving forward and be more transparent. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See no other public comment. Oh, thank you. And Ms. Binder?
I'll keep it quick. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So at the last meeting, Danielle Ford offered to take care of your data for free. We knew it wasn't going to happen, but she wanted me to extend the offer. I'm sure, I'm going to speak for her, she is also willing. She is so good at targeting those Facebook ads. If you don't know anything about Danielle, she is an amazing marketer. So I'm sure she would love to assist you if you guys need anything in that regard. And I hope she's not going to text me and choke me. And then also in the future, a service I would like to provide is if Trustee Barone is going to like throw out our ages and the years that we graduated, I would very much love to be the liaison that takes care of that for you. So just wanted to throw that out there too.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Seeing no other comments, then I would entertain a motion to approve the revised timeline and format of the meetings inclusive of the community forums. I see Trustee Barron.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the timeline.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Please cast your votes. Okay, that passes 7-0. The last item is our selection of the candidates that to proceed as finalists in the next round of interviews. This will be, like I said, an opportunity for those candidates to meet with the community. And with that, is there any, Dr. Perez, would you like to add anything? Okay. Are there any questions, discussions from our trustees? Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. Were you still going to go ahead and give like an explanation of the process that we were using?
I did, but I could repeat it again if you want me to. In order to ensure that our selection of the candidates that the board would like to move forward to the next round of interviews is fair, the following process will be utilized. The board will engage in discussion of the candidates. The board will entertain public comment, and then we will take a motion for each candidate to move forward. That'll be made by the president in the order in which they were presented. Any other questions? Okay, Miss, I don't know who, if it was Tiffany, Dr. Beamel and Marie Nicis, you wanted to speak, I think, on this portion. And then I see also others. So please come up if you wanted to speak on this before we vote. Dr. Meeble, please proceed.
Dr. Tiffany Beamel for the record. My first comment was for this comment, so do I have to do it again or no? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
That's okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Marie, please proceed.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Marie Nicis, and I'm the president of the Clark County Education Association. These are challenging times, and we must consider how they influence your leadership choice for CCSD's future. We face threats from the federal level on a scale we have not seen in many years. We need a superintendent who can navigate through those challenges and puts us in the best position possible. Who among the candidates has that qualification? We no longer get a second chance. The theme of the last Nevada legislative session was, with investment comes accountability. If you see the legislation being moved this session, which CCA supports, you will understand that lawmakers and the governor are fed up with poor performance. They are expecting change, and they are expecting it now. The legislators and the governor are ready to work with a known quantity. This is not the time for someone to learn on the job how to effectively run a school district this size, nor is this the time to have someone lead our district who does not have the political acumen to successfully work Nevada state politics for CCSD. Feel-good stories are what they are, feel-good stories. Unfortunately, they don't move the needle. Candidates who see the horizon are positioned to lead CCSD forward are the ones CCEA supports. The size of CCSD as a district demands system changes on a scale that matches our challenges. Progress in a few schools does not translate to system changes that we need for our district size. Building systems with a team of highly effective implementers in finance, academic achievement, effective partnerships with our funders, i.e. legislators and the governor, is crucial. Trustees must ask who has developed a national network capable of identifying top talent to address any deficiencies with CCSD and ensure we bring them in the right people. Finally, CCA has been involved in moving significant legislation and funding at the state level for the past several legislative sessions and continues to do so today. Candidates who know what our role has been are candidates who will understand the unique perspective we maintain when we negotiate a contract with CCSD, which we will be doing shortly. The previous superintendent failed to understand this. We want trustees to make the right decision, and we believe all of you also want that. We need a transformational leader who can understand the there and now while strategically preparing and positioning us for the future. And to respect your time, other educators who ditto my sentiments, Dan Price, Larry Epstein, Jordan Wanger, Catherine Helm, Dan Hergenrader. And again, we don't want to take up all of your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also have Vicki Kreidel and Ms. Joy.
Good evening. Vicki Kreidel for the record, president of NEA of Southern Nevada and a CCSD teacher. I would not want to be making your decision right now. I've read through all the materials, I've listened to everyone's presentations, and it's definitely a tough decision. Every one of the 4 candidates brings unique qualities, and their leadership style appears to be very different. I'm asking that you remember that CCSD is not in a great position right now. Your staff, a lot of staff are ready to give up on the district. We need someone who's going to come in with transformational leadership that's going to get us all moving in the right direction so that we can get the ship going the way we need it to go so that we can help these students learn. And that's what it's all about. If you keep student learning and staff satisfaction at the center of your decisions, you're going to be able to make the right choice. I believe that all of you have been watching you, you're listening, you're taking notes, paying attention to what they're saying, and I believe that you have the opportunity to make the most important decision for CCSD that has been made in a very long time. So I just want to let you know that we're all counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Joy?
Hello, trustees. My name is Angie Joy, and I'm a first grade teacher at Mountain View Elementary School and a proud CCEA member. First, I would like to add that I do ditto the message of CCA President Marie Nices. I would like to share some additional thoughts on the superintendent search so far. We have heard a lot from the public regarding the search, and I want to implore you to do your due diligence to choose the best possible candidate. Please do not make this decision on personal preference or personal agendas alone, but on the merit and ability of this candidate to lead and succeed here. I need you to do your research, check the references, ask pertinent questions that can lead your board to choosing wisely. As a member of the public from the first meeting when you chose the candidates, it sincerely felt that a few of you had made up your mind on one candidate, which was extremely discouraging, especially since so much has gone into this search so far, like hiring a firm, postponing the search to get the most desirable candidates, and community meetings to discuss the search, and build community support. Please listen openly and ask the hard questions. Please raise questions that will help your colleagues gain the insights to make the right choice. And be open to changing your mind if the most qualified isn't your friend or colleague from a few years ago. Our families, students, teachers, and staff deserve the best, so recommit yourself to making the best possible choice for us all. And to save time, the following educators also ditto my message: Kristen Nidro, Tanaya Johnson, Catherine Helm, Teresa Schultz, Simone Saylor, Veronica Johnson, Daniel Tillman, and Deneen Samuels. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Lazos and then Ms. Binder.
Good evening, trustees, and thank you for your time. My comments are coming from a place of having worked with the district for 20 years, since Walt Ruffles and his Superintendent Opportunities Committee, and also having lobbied for Zoom schools, Victory schools at the legislature, also being one of the key people in CCSD that moved us to having an ELL policy. So that's my perspective. I personally know John Anzalone, Joan Ebert, and Jesse Walsh. I know them. I know for the least amount of time Anzalone, I've known Joan probably close to 15 years. And going back to my prior comments, the most relevant part of hiring, I believe, is knowing what that person has done in the past, what they have achieved, as opposed to that. Some of these guys did beautiful interviews. I mean, Schuldiner, I just loved him. He's so outgoing, energetic. He's the kind of guy I would just love immediately. But I'm trying to take that bias out of the way and just talk about what do we know about these people. Are you with me? All right, so your criteria, budget, you're absolutely right. Anzalone has handled a high school budget and a 7,000 district. And our budget is like, you know, a Godzilla pickle, like the Lombardo quote. I'm sorry, no. Ebert definitely can be a person that can handle our budget. Impressed with Schuldiner and the way he picked up on our budget, really, really great. On Jesse, I just don't know what his background is on budget. On data-driven decision-making, I can tell you Jesse is that kind of guy, and so is Joni. Schuldiner seems to be that way. Anzalone, my experience with him was Restorative Justice Committee, and it was really hard to get data out of him. It was, I felt when I was on that committee, a year that it was a total waste of my time because we never got data. We just got being shuffled back and forth, back and forth. So that's one reason that as you kind of move towards those finalists, I would tell you your strongest finalist right now is definitely Ebert. Your weakest finalist is Anzalone, and I would just hatch him out. Again, I'm talking about my experience with him. Love Schuldiner's energy. I love Jesse's data-driven mentality. So if you're going to go with finalists, I would definitely say Ebert, probably Welch, maybe Schuldiner if you're, not anti-Spartan, and eliminate Anzalone from the lineup. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Binder and then David Gomez.
Madam President, members of the board, Anna Binder for the record. So I guess echoing and dittoing probably everything that you guys have been hearing for almost the past year, some of you, as you were campaigning, as you've been sitting here. I think I kind of said I was only going to try to point out things that I think you guys should know about people instead of focusing on, like, because, just like you guys, I'm getting asked 100 times over, like, who's your pick? Who's your pick? Again, and as I said the other night, this is your guys' legacy, nobody else's. So no matter who's calling you, like, who's talking, right? Like, you can hear the echo chambers of points with everything and everybody. But at the end of the day, when the media continues to be here in the room and we're trying to move forward and I'm trying to finish raising my kids and you guys are trying to like do things with your careers, they're gonna look, everyone's gonna look back at these very pivotal and key moments in your political career and the decisions and how you came about making them and, you know, whatnot. And so, as important it is to hear and take everything in, only you guys are trusted with making this decision. And it's hard. It's going to be hard because there's going to be times in the next couple of weeks that it's going to seem like no matter what you do tonight, what you do in 2 weeks, none of it's going to matter because somebody's going to be pissed off somewhere. You're not going to make everyone happy, right? So I'm going to lift you guys up as I have been in my own heart and mind, knowing that you're going to do what you think is the best for all of us. I just really hope that that decision is somewhere where I can spend the next 4 to 6 years not showing up to these board meetings to have to like talk and hold things accountable. Like, I would like to message someone back and go, no, actually, I'm not going to go tonight because things are going so wonderfully well. I'm just going to sit at home and enjoy my family and watch, right? I think that's what we'd all like, right? Like, I'm an SOT chair, right? So that's another hat I wear. I want to, in a couple weeks, walk onto my elementary school campus and have everyone on my campus celebrating that we have like this new fresh life in our community and that they're hopeful. When Legends bus driver dropped him off today on time, for the record, like she was excited. The bus yard was talking about last night's meeting and the potential of what you guys are going to do here tonight. So let's keep that momentum going because we all need it. You guys need it and the community needs it. Educators need it, kids need it, staff needs it. Let's do it.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez, and then after Mr. Gomez, Mr. Frazee.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president, former president of Wake Up, former deputy director of education for LULAC, and a bunch of other titles. I always agree to disagree on so many different levels, but I've had my spits and spats with people at times, but I'm going to tell you right now, I agree with Sylvia Lazos, and, this is one of those, yes, it is. It's one of those things where, we have to hit the ground running. Now, also, you got to make sure that the person that we pick fits your vision. It's the vision of the school district. It's the vision of the parents. It's the vision of everyone that's in this community. Joan has controlled a very large, massive machine, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. Joan Ebert, I do see as one of your top candidates because she knows the ins and outs of what we're doing. And I'm going to explain something to you about being a boss of one of the largest carpet retailers in the United States when I was, Carpeteria. And it was a hard job. It was very difficult. Handling $300 million every 6 months with budgets and everything like that, it was very difficult, especially for a young kid that was being taught how to do all these things. And sometimes I had to fire people. Sometimes I had to be that bad guy. Sometimes I had to be that person that people were willing to point the finger at because they weren't doing their job. They weren't for the right visions and goals that we had in our business. And I do it today, as of today. I still do it. I let people go. And they go and they talk crap behind my back and call me every name under the book and under the sun. But that's okay. You know why? Because I'm looking out for the continuity of those who work for me and those who are with me and the visions that we see in order for us to strive and thrive. As far as Jesse, I mean, I really don't know. I don't know Mr. Schodener. It's a very small district compared to what he's asking to be placed into. I do have a lot of questions about his contents of character because you can make a turd shiny as gold as you want, but sometimes it's always going to stink at the end of the day. But when you're looking at something, you got to remember that Dr. Angelo, I did mention some things about what was going on at the school that he was actually in charge of. And I did have a conversation with him, and he did clarify some things with me. But I'm not going to say, yes, go with Dr. Anzalone as well. My pick, and so is LeBaspi, and so is a lot of the ministers of the Black community, is Joan Ebert. And if you want to get into debates and disputes with them, then you do need this person. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frazee, and then Miss Erica.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, distinguished trustees. For the record, my name is Jim Frazee. I'm a high school teacher here in Clark County. I had no intention of coming tonight and speaking, but I heard some things the last couple of days and then today that made me get in my car and come down. And I want to clear some things up. A couple of years ago, John Anzalone asked me if I would give him a reference for how he works with teachers and the unions in his new job application for the school district in Washington State. And I said, sure, because he's a nice guy and he's very charming and I believed in him. And so they called and I gave him a rave review and he went off and got the job. And 2 years later, he brought that community together. They came together and struck for the first time in the history of the school district. And instead of reaching out for people, he took them to court twice. Now, nowhere in our conversations did he ever reach out to me and try to explain that. You need to be serious and sober in your deliberations. Our children demand that because they desperately need it. If you make the wrong decision, it's going to be 4 years before we can get rid of this person and move on. And a high school teacher, 4 years is a generation that we cannot afford to lose. You need a workhorse, not a show horse. You can't afford to get snowed. Okay? You are the largest employer in Nevada. You have the second largest bus system in Nevada. You're the third largest food provider, including the casinos in Nevada. I could fit the entire population of the Camas School District in 2 high schools. You have to be serious. We cannot afford this kind of stuff. So you're reaching a moment in history, and I don't even think you realize it. Right now, because of our last failed superintendent, there is a drive to break up this district. Not because it's the best thing to do, but it's because they are so sick of what's happened. When you have a 29% approval rating from administrators and staff who said they're proud to work for this district, it's disgraceful. Last session, when Dr. Jara and Brenda Larson Mitchell went up to Carson City and explained what was going on here, it was a disaster of biblical proportions. The leader of the Democrats said, you have failed my children. The leader of the Republicans, Mr. O'Neill, said, I am thank God that my children never went to Clark County. You cannot afford to send a Jesus Jara clone or protege back up there. I say that because I found out today that Jesus Jara, our failed superintendent, is lobbying for John Anzalone to take his place. We cannot afford any more of that. We have to have a clean break from that past, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Miss Erica? Is there anybody that would like to make public comment? I didn't, yes, on this one? Okay. And Abraham, I need you to fill out a form. Oh, he did? Thank you so much. Go ahead, Miss Erica.
Hi. Good evening, President Bustamante and trustees of the board. My name is Erica Nengre, and I am a proud parent of 5 CCSD students, 2 of whom have graduated with the most recent attending UNLV. I am also an employee support professional dedicated to ensuring I perform my job effectively for students and staff alike. As you take on the critical responsibility of selecting the next school leader of the 5th largest school district in the nation, I urge you to choose a superintendent who is more than just a qualified candidate on paper. We need a leader who truly understands our diverse community, values our voices of all stakeholders, and is committed to a long-term success, not just someone here for a title, paycheck, or driven by personal interest. I have seen firsthand the impact that strong leadership or lack of it can have on our schools. One of my children is a special education student, struggled in class, but it wasn't a test score or a district policy that made the difference. It was a teacher who felt supported enough to go the extra mile, that teacher, Ms. Wolf. Along with dedicated support staff professionals, Ms. Castro, took the time to ensure my child succeeded. This kind of dedication can only thrive when leadership values are respected, the people who make our schools work every day. Our children deserve a superintendent who will advocate for their future, listen to the concerns of the families, and build strong partnerships with educators and staff. We need a leader who sees beyond test scores and funding reports, someone who focuses on the well-being, academic growth, and overall success of every student in our district, including those with special needs. Equally important, this person must respect and uplift every employee who keeps our schools running, from administrators and teachers to the employee support professionals who work tirelessly behind the scenes. We need a superintendent who not only recognizes our district's challenges, but is also willing to collaborate with those who know the solutions firsthand. I want to acknowledge the candidates who stepped forward to this role. I appreciate that their interest and the commitment they have shown to our district. However, 2 candidates in particular stood out to me, one from today and one from yesterday. They not only recognized our faults, but also had real solutions. They demonstrated a true understanding of our district's challenges and showed willingness to take action. That is the kind of leadership we need moving forward. But no one leader can succeed alone. The direction of our district depends on the collective efforts of this board. Trustees must work together, setting aside personal interest. And I'll repeat that, setting aside personal interest and putting the needs of our students and staff beyond any individual agenda. It is not about what benefits one person or group, but what benefits our entire community. Without clear shared goals, even the most capable superintendent will struggle to bring meaningful change. This decision is not just about filling a position, it's about shaping the future of our students and educators in our entire community. I urge you to choose a leader.
Thank you, Miss Erica. I appreciate you. Thank you, Miss Erica. Chris Giuliani, and then Abraham will end with you.
Okay, thank you, Christian Giuliani. The next superintendent is not here to be liked or to be someone's friend. And people too often confuse friendliness with friendship. That's another key piece that's not supposed to be here at play, and I have not seen that from any of you, so I commend you for being as thoughtful as you have been so far. Whoever you select, 1, 2, 3, 4, I do think you need to bring at least a couple to the community so that they can weigh in on what's happening. But I think you need to select one who cares, who's not afraid to lead, who listens, who collaborates, isn't afraid to have some people part ways with CCSD, who's not afraid to review the policies and recommend undoing them, such as the grading scale, someone who will challenge the culture of mistrust, retaliation, and dysfunction that's been going on in this district. One who is data-driven to focus CCSD on kids and programs and be able to actually implement that data. One who respects the funding contributions that's made and spends it wisely with your input. One who thinks out of the box to make sure that all kids are successful. One who will bring back respect of its employees, students, parents, and community. One who actually sees us. I think you have 2 I would recommend to select, and that's Ebert and Welsh. I think they would bring the community at least a discussion of diversity to some extent because of their different skill sets that they bring. Both are data-driven people, but I'm not sure necessarily which ones. I think I know who it is, but it's your decision on that part of it, not mine, thankfully. But I do think that they would be good to present to the public for discussion and to see what those skill set differences might be, and then how they can to implement them. So good luck with your job. I think you've done a good job of culling the herd to some extent, but I do think all 4 individuals that you've interviewed were the right selections for you. I think it sent a tone for the district. I do know that Dr. Hara is busy calling principals as well as I heard trustees, not for Mr. Anzalone, I did not hear that, but against Joan Ebert. And I think that's just, well, it goes back to the questions of retaliation in the long run. So thank you very much and good luck with your decision.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Thank you. Abraham Camejo for the record. I've been part of the hiring group with the SOT team when I hired 3 different principals at Rancho High School. And one of the things that I was very persistent was to bring all the candidates that were applying for Rancho High School's principal to a town hall meeting at Rancho. And no SOT team has ever did that before. And I kept on pushing it until we were able to have that meeting at the cafeteria. And we actually had over 100 parents and students show up and gave us their input so that we can actually come up with the criteria that we needed to select the right principal at Rancho High School. And that selection ended up being Dr. Smith at Rancho right now. The reason why I say that is I feel that I know this is a long process. And when we were doing this hiring process for a principal at Rancho, I understand we need to hire a principal and there's a process to move forward. But I also felt that we needed that community input from the parents, the students, and staff. After we got that input, we were able to make a better decision as a SOT team. And I think that's important. With that being said, I would like to suggest maybe 3 candidates to move forward for tonight or 2. But most importantly, to make sure that whoever gets chosen, that goes forward and is able to engage with our community. Because as a parent, as a wrestling coach, as a volunteer wrestling coach, as a product of the school district, and I've served in many capacities as a substitute teacher, I can't be the only one for my community. I feel like I'm the only voice here from the east side and from North Las Vegas. And so I believe that we need to advertise this correctly, so with these candidates that move forward, that we actually listen to them and get their opinion, or let the public, let the parents hear. But all 4 candidates presented themselves very well and they all know about the budgets and about the issues. But I wouldn't want to be in your guys' shoes. It's a tough decision. We have great candidates right now. But it's okay to maybe slow it down or maybe make a motion to invite all the candidates, 3 or 2, so that way the people can voice their opinion as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to now go to, after public comment, to our vote. Like I said, on behalf of the team, we'd like to thank HYA to staying with us in this process and being patient and diligent to make sure that the process was fair. Thank you to all the candidates that have presented, the 2 yesterday and the 2 today. We appreciated your presentations. Now we are going to be voting as a team on who goes on to the second round of interviews and who we want the community to meet. Like we shared, you will have an opportunity, the community, to weigh in on meeting the candidates and asking them questions like we outlined before. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion. The trustees will vote whether to move this candidate to the community or not. So I will motion to move candidate 1, Dr. Anzalone, to move forward in the second round. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I will second that motion.
All right, please cast your votes, trustees. Okay, that does 1 yes, 0 abstains, and 6 noes. The next motion that I would like to make is to move candidate 2, Dr. Welsh, to the second round and meet our community. Trustee Zamora?
I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Trustees, please cast your votes. That passes 7 yeses. Next, I would like to motion for candidate 3, Mr. Schuldiner, to go to the second round of interviews and meet our community.
Madam President, I would like to second that motion.
You have a first and a second. Trustees, please cast your votes. That's 6 yeses and 1 noes. That moves forward. Candidate number 4, Mrs. Ebert, to go to the second round of interviews and meet our community. Do I have a second?
Madam President, I would like to second that motion.
I have a first and a second. Members, please cast your votes. That moves forward 7-0. So there you have the candidates. Thank you so much for a very efficient and fair process. We have one more action item to vote on, 2.03, our governance professional learning. I'd like to invite our board liaison to come forward to be able to answer any questions. This is the opportunity for our candidates to get with our balanced governance consultant to provide training to the superintendent search finalists. Mr. Caruso.
Madam President, good evening. If you would take a look, trustees, at reference 2.03, Dr. Alsbury's provided the board superintendent search assistance proposal. So on the second page, the coaching and consultation deliverables, Dr. Alsbury will provide a 1-hour virtual one-on-one training session with all designated superintendent candidate finalists. Finalists will be trained on the balanced governance model. Dr. Alsbury will coordinate with the hired superintendent search firm. Dr. Perez will be the point person who will organize and schedule the one-on-one virtual training sessions. Session training shall be confidential. No information from the training session, nor any feedback, recommendation, or endorsement regarding any of the superintendent candidates or their selection shall be provided by Dr. Alsbury to any person. So the deliverable for this is the 1-hour virtual one-on-one training session. Again, with all designated candidates, based on the vote you just took, would be 3 candidates, and finalists will be trained on the balanced governance model. The cost is $500 per candidate. As a reminder, you previously approved that $60,000 cap back in January, so this would be applied, this would be deducted from that amount if you should so approve.
Thank you. Now we're opening up for discussion. Any questions? Trustee Esparza-Strophigan, do you have a question, or would you like to
I would like to make a motion.
make a motion? Okay, all right, Trustee Esparza-Strophigan.
So I would just like to say, we had an amazing 2-day training with Dr. Alsbury, very productive. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed governance training for our finalists with Dr. Alsbury at the cost of $500 per candidate.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I know that. Do I have a second? Is that Trustee Barron?
Yes, no, I just wanted, just to make it clear to the public, the finalists that we have picked have committed to not only taking the balanced government training, but to run our district and work with our board in the governance, in the balanced governance model, which I believe, I think that was very wise for my colleagues to establish, and I wholeheartedly want to second my colleague's motion.
Thank you. I still need public comment on this, so don't think we've forgotten that. But is there any questions or any discussion? Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I had a question if we had already made the purchase for this service, if that was already cleared up.
I'm going to ask our board liaison to come back up.
Trustee Dominguez, remember the discussion in January was to approve $60,000 for balanced governance as a package, and then you approved the 2-day training for the board to proceed. But the deliverables had to come back. So this, in essence, is the first or one of the deliverables that would have to come back. So at a future board meeting, we'll bring a package from Dr. Alsbury of the various other deliverables for the board to reconsider and then make a decision for it. But the $60,000 was allocated. It's just we need to get approval for each before we can.
So this isn't an approval for this. This has already been decided on.
This has not been decided because the board did not decide on the deliverable. So the deliverables, if you remember in January, there was a rather lengthy list of options. The board said that, yes, we want to contract with Dr. Alsbury, but at that time, the board did not say, these are ABC I want from the list. So that's why we have to bring it back as a proposal for your.
I see. And so today we will be approving for this. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're
To approve
welcome.
for the 3 candidates, sorry. Madam.
Yes, thank you so much for that clarity. Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, then we have a main motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That passes 7-0. We are going to move to item 3.0. The next meeting of the Board of Trustees is Thursday, February 27th at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. We're going to our last public comment, 4.01. Dr. Beamel. Sorry, Dr. Beamel, please proceed.
Good evening, Tiffany Beamel for the record. I wanted to come back in and talk a little bit about grade reform and what's going on in our classrooms after like I prefaced earlier, yesterday I had the opportunity to go up to UNR and speak with the committee that is in charge of dual enrollment and just all the great things that are happening with UNR as our partner with NSHE at a couple of the high schools down here in Southern Nevada. And they do some really great things, and they're pushing some really great agendas with regard to making sure that our students are on the right track. But they specifically put out a detailed kind of sheet that said these are the things that our professors are kind of dealing with that are directly a result of what is happening in Clark County. And the first thing on the sheet was like no extended time for deadlines, no 50% minimum F, no, getting your mom to call in and say, my child is special, so give them special regard. There's a lot of things that are going on down here that we're doing that are a disservice to our students, and we definitely need to recognize that whatever's happening needs to be fixed. I don't know how to fix it anymore. I'm kind of at a loss because my boss is texting me right now. I'm sorry. I'm kind of at a loss because after hearing all of that and then hearing what they're doing in the other counties with their dual enrollment programs, it seems like it would be very easy to kind of mimic what's happening in other areas with that that kind of sentiment. There was also a comment made that we have a lot of participation, but not a lot of follow through. And I have mentioned that multiple times on the reports that you guys present, where you present all these amazing reports about presentation, but there's never any real data on what's happening with that. In answer to that, I did get information that we're adding a new math class because kids are doing so horribly in Algebra 1 and geometry in middle school that they have to add a new math class as a bridge between geometry and Algebra 2. So there's a lot of stuff that's being done. There's a lot of mistakes that have been made. The kids are the ones paying for it. We are the grown-ups. We're the ones who are supposed to be taking care of the kids. We have to fix it. Whoever you decide to put in charge of that, I think you guys made a mistake tonight, but that's not my decision either. And like I said last time I was here, I don't want to be in your shoes. You have to look at the track record. Nevada has not moved the needle in 5 years. We have been bottom 20% for 5 years. And nothing has changed here. We need something different. So please consider that as you're looking at these candidates. Nevada as a state has not moved the needle. Do we really want Clark County to be stuck in that rut for 4 more years? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. And then we have Mr. Gomez and then Mr. Frazee. Oh, okay, thank you. And Chris June Kiliani, I don't know if she's left. Okay, thank you. Ms. Binder.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Anna Binder for the record. So there's some people out in the community talking about me right now. So just for the record, I'm not just a failed CCSD trustee. I am a parent who shows up. I fought to help get schools reopened. I fought to get your kids their sports and activities back. And guess what? All these years later, I still sit here and I fight for you. So whatever stuff you got going on your keyboard warrior stuff tonight, if you really want to know who I am, you really aren't paying attention to your community. I stayed through this process, I think, very neutral with you guys. I did not give you despite, again, no matter who asked me, I did not say who my pick was. I also had just pulled Mr. Frazee out, or stalked him out, because around 6:30 tonight, I prepared public comment about JARA and what I know is going on in the community. And because I am the longest standing parent who shows up to these meetings to hold JARA accountable all those years that I didn't get paid for, I didn't think it was fair for me to be the one to deliver that message to you. And it just so happened that Mr. Frazee did. But I'm going to read to you quickly in part some of what I had prepared, and I was trying to be very professional about it because JAR's listening. You know how I know JAR's listening? Because he texted David after I made the comment about the schools and him being selective, and he said, tell Anna Binder I visited all the schools. So JARA, here's one for you. We're glad you're gone, but I just really wanted to say that I was concerned about JARA having any role in picking the next superintendent. A lot of us in the community feel like his time here was full of issues, hurt students, teachers, and the overall direction of our schools. The process needed to be transparent and focused on what was best for students, not influenced by someone whose leadership was widely criticized. If JARA is involved in any way, it is going to make it really hard for the community to trust that this is a fair and honest search. I'm also worried that his influence doesn't stop with the board. It could reach into the broader community of stakeholders. And if that happens, parents, teachers, and community members might get pushed aside in favor of keeping things the same instead of bringing real change. We do need a fresh start. We need leadership that isn't tied to the same old problems, and so on, okay? So that's what I had prepared to say at 2.01, Section 3. And I'm not being funny. And I love you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. And I believe you're our last person.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president. It's hard to hear noise and hear God at the same time sometimes, because when you're listening, you got to hear what you have to hear and got to say what you have to say. I know a lot of people don't respect me, and that's okay, because if I'm liked by everybody, then I'm doing something wrong. Seriously. If everybody likes me, I am terribly doing something wrong. And I respect the fact that people don't like me. But I'm the one that sat in this room before it looked like this many, many, many years. I was the only brown face standing up. And then people would show up from the Black community and the Latino community, and they would come to agendas. But I was here every single stinking meeting with 4 staff members. When I fought to get Charles I. West Prep built with Marzette Lewis and all the other people that were behind me, I stayed adamant. When I helped Mike Barton make customer service policies, I stayed adamant. When I hand Dr. Scavella 2 anti-racial policies written out by me, in 2.5 days I did it, completed it, and said, chop it up and do what you want with it. It was by me. When I stand with support staff from the bus yards or even schools without asking for no money, it is me. But why do I do this? Because I know what it's like to be the person that no one stands up for. I know what it's like to be that person that everybody kicks. I know what it's like to be that person with a mother that was a heroin addict. I know what it's like to look in a refrigerator and look at some of those things and say, you know what? All I have is water and sugar during that period of time. I know what it's like to take a needle out of my mother's arm. So I know the struggles and the hardships that people don't believe exist sometimes or they want to overlook. I know what it's like to have a Black mother that's been left with a child that's multiracial. But at the end of the day, I'm going to keep coming. Not going to do what Anna does. And I am from East Las Vegas, because my zip code is 89101, and I ran for councilman, and my son ran for commissioner in his area. And I'm going to keep pushing my kids into these positions. Why? Because we need better people. And if you guys don't want to do this job, please don't get up here and do it. Don't pick someone that's going to hurt us or hurt our children just because we just want to make other people feel good. Forget these unions, forget everything else. I'm standing here as a person who represents God and you too when you do need me. And I will be there, regardless of how we have differences. I will be there because God tells me to stand for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. That ends our public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. Therefore, I will entertain a motion. Trustee Cavazos.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza Strophagan.
I will second that motion.
I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. That passes 7-0. The time is 8:32. Thank you. Have a great evening.